Two,
One.
monkey bars.
I'm ready.
I don't remember how to do it.
Hello, my
Hello,
name is
everybody.
Petunia.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Thicc Butter podcast. My name is Alex,
My name is Jesse,
aka Thick,
and AKA Butter.
and we are coming to you live from the multiverse, a universe somewhere
Multi
somewhere
thingy.
in the multiverse.
We're one of them.
For another spoiler. Is this gonna be a spoiler review? Yeah, the movie's been
Yeah.
out for a while. We're gonna spoil this movie. And also this movie's almost nearly it's very hard to talk about without kind of getting into the nitty-grittiness of it. So we're gonna
Yeah.
spoil this movie. So if you have not seen Everything Everywhere All at Once, the new A24 film directed by Daniel Seinart. Seinert? Yeah, Seinert. And
Cynart.
Daniel Kwan, aka the Daniels. Um, Click away, go see
Yeah.
it, and then come back
This
and
is definitely
discuss it with us.
100% a movie that is best to not know anything about.
I would
Literally
say
nothing.
so. I would definitely say so. Um,
Like, watch it
and
first, and if it's overwhelming, that's okay. Just go in blind. It's totally
yeah,
overwhelming, and then go see it again.
yeah. Um, so yeah, so we're gonna spoil it, and so yeah, we just really wanted to talk about this because my history with this, I'm like, I can't remember the last time when we reviewed a movie where I've already almost lived it. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
I've seen this movie 3 times already. Um, like I can't remember the last time that we did a review like for like a new movie where I had seen it multiple times already. Maybe
Yeah.
The Lighthouse or something when we did the review for that.
Yeah.
I
And I've seen it
remember we did the
twice.
review for that. Yeah. I remember we did the review for that. It was like we've already seen it like 3 or 4 times at that point or something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to do this. So I feel like I really have a grasp on this movie,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess um, I don't even know where to begin or where to start. I guess we could start with like I've seen it 3 times and I hated it. No, I
Every time was worse.
do you imagine like I've seen this movie 3 times and I despise this movie. No, I think that I guess I'll open up with this. I guess. I don't love throwing this word around a lot, but I don't remember last time I said this. Must have been the Lighthouse, but I think that this movie is a masterpiece. I think that this movie is an all-timer. I think it's a really truly special movie, and there's not a lot of times that I have said that as of late. This movie uh blew my mind and has continued to blow my mind each time I watched it. You know, the first time I watched it, it was very overwhelming. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it, but it was so mind-bogglingly like I just had no idea what I had just seen. And you know, the more times I watched it, the more I had such a firm grasp now of like what makes this so special to me. You know, I don't
Mhm.
know if this is gonna be everybody's thing, but what I will say is that this is grabbing a lot of people. I haven't it's A24 specifically, I guess. Like I don't think I've seen a better response from the A24 movie in terms of its response globally. And it's like, you know, movies like, you know, The Witch and The Lighthouse have like insane responses in the niche community of the
Yes.
A24. This
Yes.
is kind of broadening that. There are people
Yes.
who have seen this movie and who have texted me about it, called me about it, talked to me about it, who I didn't really know, who like aren't maybe don't engage with the films produced by A24 as deeply as like I do, you know.
Hmm.
So I think that's really interesting, you know, and like yeah, I just want to open up with that because I really do think that this is a masterpiece. I
Yeah.
think that this is a perfect movie.
Yeah.
I really have rare, like I don't know if I have any real issues with this movie, and I would love to hear if you do.
Yeah.
But um,
Yeah. I think that,
I
yeah.
don't.
I, for me, this movie is so exciting on so many levels. And I think the most, there's
This
like
might be a long podcast, by the way. There's a
yeah,
lot
there's
to
a lot
talk
to talk
about.
about. But I think the most exciting when you're outside, just like the response of this movie is what's very, very exciting about it to me, both in the way of seeing that global response to it, but
Mm-hmm.
also how, I mean, we've talked about classics has been a reoccurring conversation on the podcast the
Yeah.
last couple of weeks that we've recorded. And this movie's really cool because there's a lot of movies that are sort of like personal classics for me that I've seen over the years, like The
Yeah.
Lighthouse,
Right.
Mandy,
Right.
Under the Silver Lake, movies that we've
Yeah.
talked about on this podcast that
Yeah.
are going to resonate with me for the rest of my life, which this movie is. But
Mm-hmm.
it's cool to see this movie and its response is like, this is like a real classic. This is like a
Yeah.
real, like world renowned
Yeah.
kind of classic, and in a more immediate way where it's like an immediate classic,
Yeah.
and also will continue to grow as a cult classic. Like this will be a
Mm-hmm.
very
Yes.
powerful cult classic as the years go
100%.
by.
And I
um
think there's a lot of reasons to that. I think you know, classic movies like this are almost like things that feel like this are kind of lightning in a bottle. You know, I think that this movie, for what it's about, for like the what it is, you know, I think is kind of just the perfect storm. A lot of things that have been going on in the world, and a lot of things that have been going on in the movie landscape, um, just kind of colliding and kind of creating this thing that is just a perfect movie for the times that we're living in. Meaning, like, I think that's kind of the immediate classic nature is that it, it's it's everything that I think movies like right now are trying to be. You know, I guess like I guess I'm more talking about the multiverse aspect to this movie and how
mhm.
kind of tied. This is the only mention of Marvel I'm going to make, but um, tied to Marvel movies in that way where multiverses are popping, you know, multiverses popping,
The big.
and sci-fi movies are popping, you know, big action sci-fi things are popping, you know, and this is what this is, but it is much deeper than your surface level um
Yes.
film like that.
Yes.
And so I think it's catching a lot of people off guard. And I think that's kind of the main reason is I think it is a multiverse it is a fun multiverse sci-fi action movie, but it's also a deep family drama that there's a lot to chew on here. And that's I think it's just lightning in a bottle. I think that it's just I think this movie is gonna be great if it was released in 2004,
Yeah.
but I think it's especially great when you take into account the pandemic, you know, all these things that I think we'll get into and how just I think this movie encapsulates a lot of feelings that a lot of people have been having over the past 3 years, 2 years. How long? 2 years, uh, and or I mean, there's an argument that our generation the information age, which I think this movie kind of tackles on almost subconsciously, but um, I just think it's the perfect storm. So I think you're right. I think it is going to be a cult classic and that people are going to talk about forever. You know, but I guess let's just get into it. So
Yes.
I think that's the first way to open it. That we both, I think, really think that this movie is special and something that I will never get tired of. Like this might be. I can see myself easily this becoming my most rewatched movie of
Yeah.
all time. Like it might become that. Just because if I get this on Blu-ray, it's gonna be 2G. This thing might just be on my wall. I might just put a TV
That just
there
plays this
and just
movie.
plays this movie on a loop.
Yeah.
Um, but okay, so I guess I kind of want to open up with like what this movie's about, and I guess like the broad term is that it's about a Chinese immigrant family, primarily a Chinese immigrant woman named Evelyn Wang, played by the legendary Michelle Yeoh,
So awesome.
who is um, has she's struggling. We open on her and she's having a tough relationship with her husband Wayman, a tough relationship with her daughter Joy, and she is trying to do her taxes. Things are not going amazing for her, and then she is thrusted into this multiverse sci-fi action movie. I guess that's the best way to kind of the long line of this movie. Um, but like I said, it goes a lot deeper than that. But I guess like my first, what do you want to talk about first? Like, do you want to talk about because there's so much that I love about this film, and like
Yeah.
I can kind of start anywhere.
Let's let's
Directing, acting,
let's
I can go
let,
anywhere.
let's kind of let's talk about like the production of it and talk about like shots and why sort of in a superficial, not like super superficial, but superficially kind of talk about like what's cool about it and then
Mm-hmm.
kind of go more into the deeper issues that we as we start to dissect it.
You mean just like
So
okay, well, you mean like just how this was directed,
yeah,
like
stuff
for
like that.
Daniels. Okay, I mean, I guess that so the Daniels are filmmakers that I'm kind of obsessed with. Even before I was excited to see this movie just because of them. I saw Swiss Army Man. This is their debut film, feature film, that came out in 2016, and that movie meant a lot to me. Like when I saw that movie in 2016, I I couldn't believe what I saw. Like it was, and there's some people who don't, who kind of think that movie. If you, I don't want to describe too hard. If you don't know what it is, look it up, watch it. It's an insane movie. It's one of the craziest movies ever made, I think. Just plot wise, but that movie just really opened my eyes into what is possible.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, I loved movies and like I got came out my senior year going into film school, the summer going into film school. And that movie just opened my brain into you could do anything.
Yeah.
Like if you really take the time and the effort into making an absurd idea work, you can. And after seeing that film, I got really into their short films and their music videos, which are absolutely incredible. And they all kind of base on this idea, this really broad idea of an absurd idea, and they go all the way. And what I mean by all the way is that they take it completely seriously and find the heart and the meaning of this insane idea, like the turn down for what music video, of humping things until they break. But if you watch that music video, it actually kind of becomes a statement about Asian American representation in media, which is unbelievable. And so many of their ideas are so. There's one music video that I love. I think it's the Manchester Orchestra. I think that's the band. I forget the song, but it's literally the idea of rock and roll making you pregnant.
Mhm.
And it like literally the opening image is like a guy playing a guitar and like literally playing a power chord a baby into a woman's stomach. Like
Yeah.
he rocked so hard that it got her pregnant. And but what that film turns into is like the rock star has to take care of the baby, and it like and it becomes like a really existential like film about like relationship. So you know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
and this film to me is like maybe not an absurd idea like Swiss Army Man. It's not as absurd, you know, just with the multiverse aspect. Like that's like if I was a producer, I think I could. The pitch is more like I'm listening, you know,
Yeah.
where it's like it's a multiverse movie. Like, okay, I get it,
Yeah, but
but
only because of our history with multiverse movies.
exactly
Like at a
right,
context of our current
right,
history, it's
yeah, right.
wild.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I guess it's just like a multiverse is more of a sci-fi concept that you could grab onto
Yes, yeah.
rather than a farting corpse.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's just fantasy. You know, at that point.
Yeah.
Um, and so and so uh but the film still is very absurd, but it does exactly what I just described is like the way that they direct this movie, the way that they've written this
Yes.
movie, it is, you know, Jamie Lee Curtis has hot dog fingers in this movie. And
Yeah.
there's a universe where uh the you know Ratatouille universe where but instead of a rat it's a raccoon. And you know, there's all these absurd, hilarious um universes and ideas, but they actually try to take it seriously and condense it into a compelling and heartfelt story.
Yeah.
So I guess like that's my favorite thing about this movie in broad stem, like in terms of the writing and directing standpoint. And I guess like another I wanted to ask you too is like something that really impressed me about what the Daniels did in terms of the directing standpoint. And I kind of noticed this the third time, which is super impressive, I think. And kind of something that I kind of want to open up to because one of the criticisms I've seen of this movie, which there's very little of, but is that this movie is just kind of an homage movie. That it's like very, it's
Huh.
homaging lots of different films and lots of different styles of films into one. And this reviewer is just saying that that's what this is, and which I thought would be really interesting because I didn't notice that aspect to it really until like the third viewing.
Hmm.
Um, and I still don't agree with that. I think there's a lot deeper. I think that idea goes way deeper. And what I mean by that is like how all the universe jumps are done in this movie is that the Daniels took the approach of each universe is a different genre of film and a different style, look. And to me, that was ingenious because when you get towards the end of the film, this film is asking the audience of a lot. It is it will jump shot to shot to shot, and you're in different universes as a scene is going. So shot reverse shots in different universes and like different characters in these universes. Like and by doing that, by doing this thing where a Ratatouille universe that looks like almost a Paul Thomas Anderson uh, anamorphic look, and then you have the hot dog universe, which is like a rom com, like very like stylized in a rom com. Then you have this IRS universe that's like a kung fu action movie. Then you have uh the Wong Kar Wai universe that's very obviously inspired by the films of Wong Kar Wai. The movie star universe, and then but the to me, that's like super ingenious. And one of the reasons why it works so well is that you're able to track all these universes through their directing and
Yeah.
through the that decision to change genres. You know, each universe has a specific genre.
Yeah.
That was
That
so impressive to me.
that makes me
First time I saw it. But,
that gives me a makes me think of something very important that I think this film does, which is a very powerful stride against the grain of what we think of as like good film or good filmmaking. I'm curious what, just quickly, that review of the homage thing, was that like a negative statement that they were
Kind of,
saying about that? That's
kind of,
interesting.
yeah.
So, okay, like one of what I love about this movie and why it feels like such a fresh breath of fresh air, this point about it is I think in the past, or what we kind of have this general sense of what a good movies is like what's constructed as like more stereotypic like 3 act structure Hollywood scripts,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
which those are great movies. Things like the
yeah,
Godfathers and classics come from those types of forms.
yeah,
But we're in this new age where that sort of way of just sort of filling in the blocks don't quite suit us anymore. It's not quite
yeah,
progressing us in the same kind of degree. And what I think this film is, this Daniels, what they have really made a statement about what filmmaking is just like a collection of your influences that make you feel something, feel exciting, expressing that through yourself and your own voice and making something new
hmm
with these materials that have gone into you. So it's taken in a lot of good movies and then putting out those good movies.
yeah,
But since you are doing like a kung fu movie, it's new again. It's the
right,
Daniels doing it. They're
right,
not just replicating that type of stuff.
exactly, right.
So, and I think that's really what.
That's the thing is that I really was like kind of taken aback by that because I was like, really? So like all you were seeing was the Matrix, like referencing the Matrix and things like that. Which this movie, the only movie that it references is Ratatouille. It doesn't
Yeah.
straight up reference, you know what I mean?
Yes. So
It's
I
not a
think,
Tarantino movie, you
yeah,
know,
I think it's funny because
which
I
is
think that
great. But
observation is true, and it's weird that I didn't really think of it that way, but it is
well, you
that it is a
shouldn't
lot
think
of
about it
awe.
like that,
Yeah,
you know?
but it's funny that you think, it's because to me, once you think about that and realize that, I think that's more of a testament, because you literally see them putting
Yeah,
pieces of themselves onto the screen and turning
right.
it into this crazy type of story.
Yeah,
So
I guess the criticism comes from more of like, um, like a Tarantino thing where it's like we want to bring all these, movies into the, everything, into one thing, and we do like, you know, all these different genres. So it's kind of like, but I think what I was explaining was, well, I think that's a great point, is that they're taking all these influences, but it doesn't feel, um, to me anyway, it didn't feel, um, like cheap, you know? Like there's so many movies where you're
yeah,
like, oh, they're referencing The Matrix right now, or they're referencing Wong Kar Wai movies and like, things like that. But um this to me didn't have any of that. It didn't have any
yeah,
of the um cheap referencing that I think a lot of blockbusters sometimes do, you know?
yeah. So
And
I
I
that
also think because it goes deeper than that, that they're able, just by doing this, that was an ingenious way to even allow the audience to not feel inclusive in these different universes and allow the story to actually work.
yeah,
And it's working
yeah.
on many levels.
I think I want to bring up the opening scene as a point to that, because
Uh huh.
the point of what you're talking about is this phenomenon of filmmakers who don't really have that much of a story or a movie, and they just sort of have a style they want to replicate because it's popular or they think it's
Uh huh.
cool. I
Yeah.
wish I could think of some examples, but you probably know what I mean. Everyone's seen a movie like this that is like The Matrix, or is just doing that shtick again, or trying to be like Quentin Tarantino, and
Yeah.
it just doesn't quite have the same feeling to it. It looks the same. It might kind of be the similar pacing, but it's just like a copy. It's just like a duplicate of that.
Mm-hmm.
And you could say that about this film, but you're wrong. And the
Yeah.
reason you're wrong about that is, we'll start watching the movie. The movie doesn't
Yeah.
open with anything flashy. The movie
No.
opens with this hilarious family dynamic that
Yeah.
sets up everything. It's phenomenal writing, it's phenomenal performances and directing,
Yeah.
it's a clever setup. Like, their genius is not something that is only reflected in their flashy shit that they're doing.
Yeah.
Their
Right.
genius is in the fact that they're phenomenal directors who have put in a tremendous amount of work to get to this point where they have this flexibility to go anywhere they want to go, as
Yeah.
wild as it is, and it still works because they know their world and they know
Yeah.
how to make it work within
Exactly.
their means.
I think you just hit the nail on the head of what makes the movie like incredibly impressive is that there is um tons and tons of crazy mother loving shit in this movie and
Yeah,
super overwhelming stuff. And I can see somebody who maybe doesn't watch a lot of you don't watch a lot of genre movies, you might just be like, what the fuck am I
yeah,
watching?
definitely,
But
definitely.
um like me, I'm used to kind of seeing like crazy shit, and this still was like overwhelming. But there's a lot. But the thing is, they, like you said, they understand the story that they're telling so deeply that every choice that they're making and everything that they do and throw at you works. I mean, like every absurd idea for comedy, for levity, for like emotional poignance, every great thing that maybe on the surface seems like crazy, like the everything bagel, for example, and the
Yeah.
seems absurd, but when you actually start progressively watching the movie, and you see that everything bagel, you're gonna cry. So there's this
Yeah.
it does this really incredible thing where there's a point where Michelle Yeoh's character and Jamie Lee Curtis's character in the hot dog universe are breaking up, and you feel it.
Yeah,
That they
dude.
have hot
Yeah.
dog fingers, and they're like, so it's like that's their genius is that
Yeah.
they're able to. You're so right. They're able to just know it so well that they're able to. They take it seriously. They go. They're treating it like they're directing a dramatic,
Yeah.
a real movie. Like
I
it's not like a farce.
yeah, yeah.
But
And
it
I'm
is
really
also an absurd comedy at the same time.
yeah.
That's what makes this film so unlike anything ever. Like it's this it's truly an original movie. Like you
Yeah.
really have never seen anything like this movie.
Yes.
I
Yes,
can't really
100%.
really describe like I can't compare this movie to anything else. And when you do, it's like The Matrix, One Car Wily. It's the movies that they're kind of referencing because there's
Yeah.
nothing like this movie.
But they're not even really like those movies that they're
No,
referencing
they're
because
just like
they're
there's
so it's so
scenes that
different.
remind me of the Matrix, the fight scenes, but that's just kung fu, and it's there's nothing like it. There's
Yeah.
absolutely nothing like it.
I want to talk about the bagel for a second because that's a
Mhm.
I thought about this the second time I watched it when I was able to pay a little bit more attention to the details of what was kind of going on. And I realized that there's a genius about the bagel in addition to it just being a funny idea, like putting
Yeah.
everything on a bagel just being sort of funny and entertaining. But I was thinking about this whole factor about like how did they make this work and like how can
Uh-huh.
I watch this and kind of follow it? The first time was overwhelming, but like I got it. It wasn't like hard. I got it. So it's like how did they make that happen? And I
Yeah.
realized one of the things it's so simple about like with the bagel, for example, because a
Uh-huh.
lot of a lot of times movies will have something weird like a bagel. They'll just come out of left field and be like, this is just like different for no goddamn reason,
Yes.
and it's like where did this come from? But the bagel, although when it shows up, you're like, what the fuck? You're like,
Uh-huh.
I'm in it. I'm with this bagel. I don't really know why. But
Yeah.
when you watch it a second time, you realize what it is that they set it up through visual information.
Yeah.
They don't waste time by saying, hey, think about a bagel now because it's going to be later, or like
Well,
saying, oh,
yeah.
worry about this guy in the future. They just set up visual language in the
Yeah.
background so you
Exactly.
subconsciously
Right.
prepare yourself for it. And they
Well, I
do
mean,
this all over the place with this film. They
think
visually
about
set you up.
the introduction to Joy. She's staring into the laundromat.
Yeah.
She's staring into the washing machine. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, and then there's tons of things like that throughout the film. You're
Yeah, you
absolutely
start
right.
with the circular mirror. You start with that
Exactly.
circle. There's like that those
And
those circles.
well, we could go on and on about what the everything they like kind of represents and like that thing, the circular nature of it.
Yeah.
Like it goes deeper. The choices aren't like the choices aren't just some of them are just absurd, like the hot dog fingers.
Yeah.
That's just absurd and funny. You know, but a lot of the choices are not. They're very deliberate and they are thought about for a long time. They're
Yeah.
not just in the movie for no reason.
Yeah, and even though the hot dog's fingers like necessarily don't, besides the hot dog fingers themselves, don't
Yeah,
necessarily hold much significance. The significance of that storyline comes back around in
yeah,
the
yeah,
relationship with the Deidre
yeah,
character,
exactly.
which
Right.
is again, that's a genius way to tie in a joke. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, well, let's make this side character's character development into a
yeah,
really funny joke and then turn it into an emotional payoff at the end of the
exactly.
movie. It's like
Right,
that's so smart. That's how you do
right.
it.
Yeah, so I guess like Yeah. So this movie is like ingenious in so many ways when how it's directed and how it's written. I guess I also just really want to mention um like the last thing I'll say also about the director of this movie is like the verse jumping and how we're kind of talking about this movie like we've seen it, you know? So
Yeah,
like so
it's kind of hard.
it's kind of very hard.
Yeah,
So but
not to.
the thing about the verse jumping that I was so incredible is that what was so challenging, I can't imagine, you know, this movie seemed so hard to even come up with or conceive and pull off, but they had a really hard time in kind of creating the visual language for verse jumping. And like a lot of the visual effects in this movie, which this is a prime example. I don't know if you noticed this the third time or the second time. There are like 6 people credited as the visual effects artists in this
Yeah,
movie.
which is
And
mind
what's
blowing.
and yes, there are visual effects, but most of this movie are special effects. Most of it is practical filmmaking, and most of it is very. And that's something about the Daniels that I'm so happy that this movie is successful, which means that they will just and people are loving it because I think it will remind people like CGI is not, you know, you could do really cool shit with practical effects. Not only cool shit with practical effects, just fun stuff. You know, make it just it just looks better. It just looks when you to like, you know, have things practically, like a lot of these special effects are simple things, like jump cuts and like there's this great video on YouTube I highly recommend of them breaking down some of the visual effects of this
Yeah,
movie.
it's amazing. It's
And
a
it's
really
like
amazing
when you
video.
watch it, you're like, yeah, I mean, all these things that they're doing, we could a lot of it. So if we sold it very hard, but sold it we could do. You just have to have the idea, and you have
Yeah.
to have the skills and knowledge to kind of pull it off. But it's very basic things. I mean, the verse jumping when she first goes into the verse jumping, it's a green screen. And it's like stock footage that they cranked up the shutter speed to make it look blurry and, you know, like have it's very basic, you know, after effects and very basic stuff. It's not like Lena didn't work on this movie. You know, fucking ILM didn't work on this movie. There was
Yeah.
5 people in their fucking bedrooms and it looks amazing, you know? And so like you and what's cool about the Daniels is they come from music videos and they come from things like YouTube. You know, they're young guys. They're in their late 20s and like early 30s, and they grew up with YouTube and grew up with like they're some of the first master filmmakers that are kind of influenced by YouTube. You know,
Yeah.
and that were those guys that were like how to make a like
Yeah.
on After Effects. Like they're that generation, and so it's great to find to
It's so
see
cool.
people like that that are making movies like this. You know,
Yeah.
um,
This
so
is
yeah,
the
I love visual effects in this movie. You
that's
know,
this
and I loved it.
that what you're talking about, I think might be one of the most important things about this movie on like a cultural
Hmm.
level. We're not talking
Yeah.
about like the story of what it is, but the significance of what you're talking about, I think is astronomical because
Uh.
I think that this movie is like one of the signs of the destruction of the studio. I think it's going to be
Yeah.
fucking obliterated. And I think this movie is going to be that we're going to look back on this movie and said, started here. It
Yeah.
started here because what they proved is that they showed that if you just learn your fundamentals and you get like the basics around and you know your story and you got guys who can kind of so you combine pretty like basic DIY special like practical effects, special
Yeah.
effects with the at your in your house what you can do with your laptops with that
Right.
crazy CGI technology and you have a movie that looks as good as a Hollywood movie
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
and that's something that you can do with a very small team and
Yeah.
a
Yes.
relatively small
Yeah.
budget too, which
Right.
is insane
Yeah.
because if you talk about like
This is
this
an
is not
indie film. Like
yes
this is
which
a
is
poorly made.
crazy.
I think
because
this
this
is
is
what is the budget of it? I think it was like 20 million or something like that. Let's see. It was I actually don't know what the budget was, to be honest.
yeah,
I
but
don't
it's
think
it
it wasn't a lot at all.
but it's
But
totally an indie film, which is
yes,
mind-boggling because this is as complicated as Endgame and like
yes.
the type of special
25 it
effects
was
and
20 it was a
shenanigans.
$25 million movie.
Yeah,
Which is
which is
wild.
which is a lot of money still, but not much for movies.
No, it's not. That's like a low budget movie. It's like a low to mid budget movie.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's I think like that conversation.
I mean,
I think
if we
it's
want to talk about what
exceptional.
you're talking about, watch Swiss Army Man. Swiss Army Man was made for $1.5 million.
Right.
No visual effects at all in that movie. It's all practical, all of it,
Yeah.
and it looks amazing. It's like it's so creative and ingenious what they some of the things they do on that.
Right. And I think this movie is going to do some major legwork into making the
Yeah,
whole like world realize that you can do that. Like you don't
yeah.
have to make it like this obsession. I think CGI is a fantastic thing because it's part of what makes this
And there's
movie great.
CGI
And
in
so
this
many,
movie. This is all, like
yeah,
all practical. The whole black hole sequence is uh CGI. They can get
yeah, but
a lot
we
off
but
of that.
modern societies and modern movies especially just have this fetish for
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
realism, like hyper realism, and just making it look perfect without with putting no like soul or emotion
Yeah,
into it at
right,
all. And
right.
they're like, let's just not focus on that as much. Let's just make it work and just try
Exactly.
and just expedite this process. Let's just use
Exactly.
this so that we can do more crazy shit because we have smaller cameras that look fucking
Yeah.
awesome.
Right.
We don't need a big team because that slows us down,
Yeah.
and let's just focus on great ideas, great
Right.
action, great performances, great camera
Yeah.
work, and just do it with what we have with modern
And they also
technology.
were willing to like, put the work in. That's the thing. It's like I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
this will be like the death of studios because I think like I think movies will just be made differently. I think they will just be taken more account into because we live in a weird time now where the mid-budget movie, like the 40 to like $50 million budget movie, doesn't exist. They're
Mm-hmm.
either a low budget movie like
Yeah, that's really
0 to
interesting.
25 million, or like 100+ million. There's no mid-tier budget movie anymore, which is very bizarre. And something that just came out, Michael Bay's Ambulance, which I heard is actually very fun, one of the best Michael Bay movies, but
Mm-hmm.
that was made for 40 million, and that bombed. So I don't know if people are, I don't know, studios are just there. We're in a weird time where it's like a lot of these mid-tier movies that need, like maybe 40 million. It's not a lot of money, to pull off an action movie, like Ambulance or something. Like, um, studios are not going to be willing to do that. That's why we're getting all these
Yes.
IP movies and these giant like sequel reboot things because they're attached to a name brand, and or you're gonna get like a really low budget thing. And what's great about this movie is that the Daniels are so mother loving talented that they got 25 million and made a fucking blockbuster movie, man. Like this movie
Yeah.
is so incredibly creative visually that I guarantee you if I somebody who moderately knows about budgets and I told them that this was $100 million movie, they would believe me. Like I'm
Yeah.
completely serious.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Um,
what it looks like. I mean,
that's
that's what
why
it looks like.
that's just skill.
So
That's
like
just
that, and when we're in this world where all those, because you're so right, we have this polarized sort of spectrum of like
yeah.
these extreme budgets that are either super huge or really small, and we're in this time now where it's like
And
maybe
it's
it's
not
because of
even
just
like
my taste, but like those mega budget movies are like really starting to be hard to swallow. They're getting really boring and
yeah.
dry. I think people
Yeah,
are
oh
getting
yeah.
tired of it. So
Absolutely.
what happens when this happens, right?
Yeah.
When they see, oh shit, we can make something that looks as good as these hundred
Yeah.
million dollar movies for like literally like a penny's amount
Yeah,
of what we are
exactly.
spending.
Right.
It's like what
Right.
happens then? We'll have to
Yeah.
see. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
it's
I don't know.
crazy.
But I mean it's a good sign. I think the production of this movie and like this film just being made is a great sign. And like A24 just kind of proves to be kind of keeping cinema alive. You
I
know, like I
know.
hate to say that because I hate being that guy. You know, because like
It does
A24
feel like that sometimes,
fanboys make
though.
me want to like throw up.
Yeah.
But I say that while I wear A24 hat. But like they are just, and there's things about them that I don't, that I have problems with, that I, some of the things that they, how they handle certain things I just am not down with. But when they do something like this and get this thing made, what, how do you not like these people? I mean, they
Yeah.
are, this movie would never have been made, you know? And like maybe it would have, I don't know, it's so fucking great. Maybe it would have been made, but um I don't
But
know.
they're part of the perfect storm that you were talking about earlier. That they're like A24 was at this place of their career. This
Yeah.
movie was coming out. It was at this.
Well,
It's part of that.
it's
They're
just
part of that.
great that it's just great that A24 is like a brand now. I mean, there's pros and cons to it, but like the pros are that people will go see a movie because A24
A24.
produced it and they're
Yeah.
putting it in theaters. I would have been so sad if I didn't see this movie in theaters. This movie is designed for movie theaters, dude. This movie is so, it's such a crowd pleaser movie. I
Yeah.
haven't had this much fun in a movie theater in a long, long time. Fuck Marvel movies. I mean, like they're not nearly the level of. I'm gonna get emotional just talking about the theater experience relating to this movie because this is why I love cinemas, because not everybody going into this doesn't know what they're about to see, really. When you go into like a Spider-Man movie or something, like you're gonna, you know, let's be honest here, you know what the fuck you're gonna see.
Yeah.
That people are gonna cheer and when Andrew Garfield walks out, you know? That's
Yeah.
awesome. But I knew that that was gonna happen. I just didn't know how it was gonna happen. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
this movie, the amount of people that laughed and had this emotional experience together. I've heard so many people that, I've cried multiple times in this film, each time I've seen it, and having that communal experience with an audience is, unlike anything ever, Like that to me is um just special. Like that's
Yeah.
why movies are in theaters. It's not just because for the big, loud, booming soundtrack or the visual effects. It's the communal aspect of seeing a movie. That's why movie theaters are fucking awesome.
Yeah.
It's not the visual effects and the booming soundtrack, which is great too, but it's seeing it with other people. And this just
Dude.
like
Yeah.
reminded me of that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Yeah.
And
I
I'm
think
so
you're
happy that A24 like, because this movie was shot in 2019 and they held it out for 2022 so it could be seen in front of audiences. They could have easily put this out on VOD or sold it to Showtime or whatever for
yeah, but it
however
was worth the
for
wait. Yeah, man, it was so worth the
because they
wait.
knew it. They knew that this movie had to have been seen in theaters.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I think that sort of response about that theater experience is very significant and also telling to me when I saw it for the first time in theaters, which we watched it your third time, my first
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah.
I was really struck by that reaction to it because you're right with
When's
the
the last
reactions.
time that you felt that in a movie theater? It's been a
I can't
while,
remember. I can't remember because it's so cool because this movie was so like it wasn't like anything and everyone was on the same page with it.
Yeah,
It didn't matter who old, young people, like whoever it was, like they were in it and they laughed at the rock
right,
scene when it was just rocks and like the titles were
right,
coming up. They laughed at the hot dog scene. They cried
yeah,
when they said I am your mother. All that
yeah,
shit.
right,
People responded in exactly the
yeah.
same way and they were so thrilled about it.
Because
Everyone was
I mean,
so
that's
into it.
just, I can't even express to you like how magical that is. Like that
Yeah.
is like why I love films. Like that's
Yeah.
why I got into and love this shit in the first place. Is like seeing, movies like, you know, um, I don't even know, like, um, Mad Max Fury Road and
Yeah.
and things like that in theater for the first time that really kind of just with big audiences that are just we're experiencing something that we'll never forget. You
Yeah.
know,
And
Marvel movies
honestly,
are
that's
not the same. They're like cultural. They don't work on the same level. It's like fan shit. Star Wars. It's like fan shit where it's like these the movies are designed to be cheered at. There's certain moments in this movie that there are cheer-worthy moments. Like that's insane. Cheer-worthy moments in this movie, but they're not like obvious. They're not forced. And so
yeah.
it's like it's a different experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've kind of forgotten that because it's such a good point.
Yes.
Because with Marvel and a lot of other these popular films, or just like this reboot disaster that we're in right
Yeah.
now, is just like this idea that people will only respond to things that they are familiar with. Which you hear this all the
Uh
time. It's like
huh.
it needs to be familiar. People need to know it. Do something that works. Just do the same stuff over and over and over
Yeah.
again. And it's like if you do the story well and
Yeah.
it's something exciting and you hook people on it, then people will love it like
And
nobody's
that's
business. Like think about I watched Wally the other day, which is another film like that,
nice.
too. Wally's a pretty fucking weird film to
Yeah.
pitch and go
Totally. Yeah.
through with that. And
Yeah.
as soon as that came out, as soon as it came out, everyone was like, I love Wally. I love
Yeah.
it so much. That's
Right.
what this is. It's like I love Evelyn. I just love her. I love
Yeah.
her so much. I
Right.
love everyone in this movie. I love
Yeah.
what this movie is because
Yeah.
they knew how to make a story
I
that
was talking to
works.
my friend last night about it, and she was saying, like I said, like she's asking me what I loved about it, and I was like, I think I said something to that extent where it's like they made something that is is strikingly original. Like I mean, there's nothing like
Yeah.
this movie, but it's accessible. It's
Mm-hmm.
a story because
Holy fuck, yeah.
there's so many, and like some people look down on that, like accessible is like a bad thing or something. And
Yeah.
like to me, it's just that's so crazy because of course you want everybody to like understand the story and get the story and what they're trying to do. It's just there's movies that sometimes are gonna not hit people, and then there's movies that are gonna touch everybody. But each one is special. It's just this is like when you can make something this weird and this original and to touch so many people and like have everybody on the same page when there's people chasing raccoons and people fighting with hot dog fingers and pinky fights and that's I mean that's why we keep saying like this is gonna be a classic. But
Yeah.
um okay, I'm done talking about like broadly, but I
Yeah.
kind of want to like talk about more like the story because I
Yeah.
think we haven't really touched on that like what
I'm
we
ready
love
for it.
about the story so much. And Um, so for one, I think what you were getting at earlier too is that the opening scene of the movie is one of the best, like, like setups to a movie I had seen in forever. Like that seemed like that it took months to prepare that
Yeah.
scene because
Yeah.
there's so much writing on that scene because the thing is that this movie it really forces you into fucking chaos. So if you don't have these characters that you love and you understand, because this movie is a family drama. This is at the end of the day, this is what this is. This is a movie about existentialism, nihilism, uh, generational trauma. It's tons of different things, but it's all rooted in this family. And so that setup was, well, just absolutely flawless. Every shot, every line of dialogue, like everything, it set up all the characters like so
Yes.
excellently.
Yeah. It's
Um, and that's like the characters in this movie are just unbelievable. And the performances in this movie we haven't even Michelle Yeoh. Oh my god,
she's so awesome.
I
love her.
love this woman so much. I love Michelle Yeoh. She in movies before she's great. Crushing Hidden Dragons. She's great in Shang-Chi. She's in recently. She's
Hmm.
amazing in Crazy Rich Asians. Crazy Rich Asians is awesome. I don't care what people say. It's a great movie. Actually, people love that movie, but she's amazing in that film. So I was really curious to see her in this movie because she's more of a supporting character. She doesn't really star in a lot of films
Yeah.
as of late. She's in huge Hong Kong martial arts legends. She did movies with Jackie Chan, most notably Super Cop 3, or no, A Police Story 3, Super
Yeah.
Cop, that's what it's called. Um, and and she, I mean, brought a tear to my eye in this movie. She does everything.
Yeah.
She's funny. She's badass. She's heartfelt. She's everything, everywhere, all at once in this movie. She's, it's a remarkable performance.
Yeah.
Um, and who I was also even nearly impressed by was T. Kwan, who who plays Wayland, who might be fair. I love Wayland.
I kind of think he might have stolen the whole movie to a
I think
certain
that's
degree.
fair. I mean, I think there's a lot. I mean, I'm gonna get emotional just even thinking about this because I'm seeing he's the actor is you guys may remember him from playing Short Round in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and Data in the Goonies, and he hasn't really acted in a movie in about 20 years, and he's stepped away from acting, and he's been very open about how there wasn't a lot of roles for him. There weren't a lot of Asian roles for him, and that were that he felt that were good representations of the Asian community, and he didn't really want to be a part of it, so he stepped back and became a stunt coordinator. Actually, he worked on X-Men. He worked on tons of notable movies. He was working on the behind the scenes,
Wow.
and he saw Crazy Rich Asians and got total FOMO and was like, I want, because that movie was always in cast, and he was like, I wish I was in that movie. And so he, called up his agent and was like, I want to get back into acting. And he auditioned for this, got the part, and we have him back in movies, which is amazing, incredible. It's an incredible story. Uh,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
guy is, he didn't miss a beat. He is so fucking fantastic in this movie. All three versions of Wayland, Alpha Wayland, the the IRS or whatever you want to call it, the regular Wayland and the CEO Wayland, they all are distinct and they all are. It's an amazing performance. It's an amazing performance.
Well, and also, and so he's the thing that's really crazy about his performance to me and so mind-bogglingly impressive about it is that you have situations where actors have to adaptation, stuff
Uh
like
huh.
that, where you have actors playing two
Like
roles of
multiple role,
themselves,
multiple. Yeah, right.
which is what this role is to a
Yes.
certain degree. But what makes this role even more complicated is that he switches characters in the same scenes
On a dime.
without
Right.
cuts.
Right.
And
Right. Right.
like the
Right.
scene that I think is the most crazy is like when they're at the dresser. The Daniels talked about
Yeah.
this scene where he changes which Wayman he is just using his eyes, and it's like
Yeah.
that's crazy that I read that, like I
Uh
can
huh.
see you change your
Yeah.
personality. So the kind of finesse of acting that he
Uh
does in
huh.
this film, it's understated because he knows he's a supporting role and he
Right.
stays in his lane as a supporting role, but
Totally.
he is such a phenomenal supporting role. It
Yeah.
almost like takes over everything to me. I love
He's
Evelyn,
amazing in the
she's so
action
awesome
scenes.
too, but like,
He's amazing in the action
oh
scenes.
man.
It's just incredible. Like he has some of the favorite moments in the movie. He really is incredible. It's just I grew up with this fucking kid. I
Yeah.
grew up with this
Yeah.
guy. I loved like Short Round. Who played when I was a kid? He's awesome. Or Data and the Goonies. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So it's awesome to see him in a movie again
Yeah.
and kill it. Just absolutely murder it. It's incredible.
And
And
just on the topic of like Asian representation in general, this movie is awesome for
yeah,
like the
right.
show is about middle age
Yeah.
Asian people?
Well, not just
What?
that,
That's
not just that. Immigrants,
yeah.
true American immigrant Chinese family,
And I
and
don't feel like they like whitewash it or apologize about that at
not at
all, which
all.
is so
No,
refreshing and
I mean,
cool.
Dan Kwan is Asian, and he talks, talks about that his parents were immigrants, and I think he kind of implemented his experience a lot into this film. But it that was something that I think I saw, Michelle Yeoh talk about, where she was like, I wanted to do this movie because it felt like I've never seen a character like this in a fucking movie. A
Yeah.
movie that has this a character like this. A struggling Chinese immigrant woman. Which is like, and she's a superhero in this movie. Like that's unheard of. So like that, you're absolutely right. That is a very um important thing in this movie. And it's not, it doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like some Hollywood things where they feel like that they need to, add representation
Right.
just to
The
have it,
token, the token not white
right,
person.
exactly.
Yeah.
This feels like um right. It just feels right.
Yeah, and I think
Like,
and it also goes into there's significance to them being immigrant
kind of, well,
Asians,
yeah,
you
right.
know.
It's also part of the story. Yeah.
Right, which and but the layers of it, because you're right, because at the end of the day what her character is that it's like she's a funny superhero, it's a comedy
Yeah.
superhero, and it's about that story about her kind of going through this comedic superhero story, but it also works so like the emotional core is still that
Uh-huh.
family Chinese immigrant
Right,
story,
right,
which is
exactly.
it's
Right.
so important, and that
Yeah.
they do
And
that
the and they get the
perfectly.
dynamic of a family like that, especially with her father, which I thought James Hong, who's an iconic uh
Yeah.
actor, Asian actor too. If you see his credits, you're like, has he been in every movie ever?
Yeah.
James Hong. Um and so yeah, totally. And Stephanie Sue, who plays Joy, this is the first film I've ever seen for her.
Yeah, me too. She was so good.
Unbelievably fantastic.
So good.
We're gonna see her a lot in movies. I think moving forward, she's incredible in this movie. I think a lot of people. She's just gonna get a lot of work
Yeah.
after this. This is great.
Yeah.
Same with Thicc Butter, which is you know amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, all the performances and all the characters are just so fantastic. And Jamie Lee Curtis also
Oh my
is
gosh, yeah.
what an amazing supporting character. And also, I've loved Jamie Lee Curtis my whole life, And her just being in this movie, I don't know her personally, obviously, but she just seems like a cool person,
Yeah, totally.
who would do this movie. She's Jamie Lee Curtis. She's like, same with Michelle Yeoh, like all of them, like, but Jamie Lee Curtis is kind of like a different level of that because she's doing some crazy shit. Like she's, doing some wacky shit in this film.
Yeah.
And, her fans most likely are not going to be the ones that are going to rush out and see this movie. So it's just amazing that she's in a movie like this,
Yeah, and it's like
and
it
willing
kind of
to
reminds
play,
me it reminds me of Bobby Pattinson, and his direction.
Sure,
He's just
yeah.
like this drive that he just has to just like make crazy
Well,
movies and not do the
do good work,
yeah.
do cool movies, and
And that's what it really seemed like. It seemed like, it's like, what? I'm a star. I have a shit ton of
fuck
movies,
it.
but
Yeah.
I'm passionate about the craft.
I
And this
saw
seems
this.
awesome.
I saw this interview with her that made me laugh. And she was talking about because they were asked like, uh, so when you read the script, like what did you think? Like because I can't even imagine reading the script for this movie. I'd be like, what the fuck
I
is
would love to
happening?
read the script. I
And
bet it's
Jamie Lee Curtis
crazy.
she goes, I had no idea what was going on. Like
Yeah.
I had no idea. And I met with the Daniels, and I was like, "These guys are cool." So I did the movie, and so, which is just like amazing. Um, but yeah, I mean, all the performances are so great. And what's cool is like, there's only really, and all the supporting like characters that they fight in this movie are those are all YouTubers. You know that?
What?
So
That's cool.
all the dudes that choreograph the fights and that are in the fight scenes, usually in great action movies, the characters that are, and this is like something that I've noticed a lot, but usually the supporting cast, the people that are, in the fight scenes are usually stunt performers, and they usually play roles in the movies,
Hmm.
because if you want to shoot an action movie correct, you're not going to use stunt doubles, which this movie didn't, very rarely, you know. So, uh, but all those guys just have a martial arts YouTube channel, and they're like obsessed with martial arts movies, and so they just the Daniels just ask them to do it. And they don't have any training and martial arts or
Dude,
anything like
fucking
that. They're
future
yeah
innovation
yeah
right there.
yeah.
That's the future. This is
They're
this is
just
why
yeah
studios should be shaking in their fucking boots, because
right.
that's genius.
Well, I think it's just
Genius.
it's just also about taking risks and allowing like the Daniels, like they saw these guys on YouTube probably. They're like they're big fans of martial arts movies. Let's just talk to them, and they obviously had a good relationship. We're like,
Yeah.
just be in our, just do our movie.
Yeah. And it's so
We don't
silly
have to
because it's
hire.
like,
We're friends with these guys. Why don't we have to hire like
yeah,
stunt
because
coordinators,
I
which are
feel like,
amazing too, but we have these guys,
yeah, yeah. I feel like it's along the mindset where it's just like, well, we know how to make a movie, but they know martial arts. So we'll make the
Right.
movie and they'll just come in and do martial arts. So it's
Well,
like,
they'll choreograph the fights for us.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But there's like this mindset. It's just like, well, I don't want to hire who's not in the movie business because, like, they're
Yeah.
not like capable or whatever. It's just like they know fighting. That's what
Right.
they do.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
and that's
Right.
what you need them to do. You do the
Well,
movie making.
what's cool is like that's something too that I guess the fight scenes in this movie are they're incredible. They're
Yeah,
so good. They're so much fun.
yeah.
And again, like the rest of the movie, they're visually creative. Like there are things in it that you've never seen before. The fanny pack fight just
Oh
jumps
my
into like
god.
one of my the favorite fight scenes in any movie because
Yeah,
it's just that good, you
yeah.
know?
And that was really the fight. Again, excellent on many levels. Excellent just on what a creative and fun fight, but then also the way it ties into the story,
Oh
but then
yeah,
also on the way that fight was so important to sort of clicking us into how this movie works, because that was like the
yeah.
slowest watching that build up to him like chewing the chapstick
The
and then clicking the
yeah,
button. It's like
yeah,
that was just learning how this
right,
system works, and they do that so much faster. Like they never take that amount of
right.
time ever again.
I
So,
guess
but it's
that like
so cool.
yeah, I love that. And also that the how the movie kind of gets flung into us is that she had Evelyn has this poor relationship with her daughter, trying to connect with Joy and kind of dismissive of her and her girlfriend, and she gets like visited by Alpha Wayman and says there's a threat to the multiverse. Jobu Pataki, we have to stop this thing, that's destroying the multiverse. And so she learns how to verse jump, which is one of the most creative things I've ever seen in a movie. And when I first saw the that what you're describing when she bites the chapstick and stuff like that, like I was like, what is happening? You
Yeah.
know? I was
Yeah.
like, I like this, but what is up with this? Because the idea is that they have to do something weird to get power and to verse jump. But the more times I watched it, the more genius this is because they actually take it seriously where to get to the universe, you have to make decisions. You have to make like every decision that creates a branching universe. Every decision that you do. And so how the verse jumping works is that in order to jump to a universe where you have kung fu, you have to eat an alligator,
Yeah.
and that creates the branch to, you have to say I love you to Deidre to create this universe where you have, hot dogs for fingers, accidentally,
Yeah. Yeah.
so, but so what's amazing is the first time I watched it, I thought it was just this quirky idea where they had to do something weird. But the more I watched it, I was like, oh, wait a minute. There's actually reason for that. Like, it's actually genius in that way where it makes sense within the world. It's not just this quirky idea, you know?
Yeah, and that's like along the lines
Which is
of sort of
probably I love that whole fucking thing, man. When
yeah.
they have to do like paper cuts and have to shove something up their ass to get the power and stuff like that, man.
Yeah, and
That's
that's like
pretty
the
good.
distinction of sort of making that work is the difference between what's a shtick versus what's a
Uh-huh.
genius idea, that functions on all cylinders like that. Because it really, because you can do anything with that. You can
Yeah.
take that anywhere and go as many crazy places as you want, and it all works.
Uh-huh.
It all works within it. But they were very selective about just not like about not betraying the logic of that absurd logic of how that works,
Right.
so it always resonated no matter what crazy fucking shit that they did,
And
which
that's kind
is
of just the Daniels like genius. Because they did that with this Army Man, where they were able to like this guy is a Swiss Army man. He can
yeah.
do anything, and but you by the end of it, you believe it and you cry when Manny is pushed off into the ocean. But the
Yeah.
Swiss Army man is gone. He taught me how
Yeah.
to live life again. And like that's just something about their work that is just so inspiring. Like I can't really even. It's just so pure. It's just
Yeah.
like it's just absurd, childlike absurdity, but they just go all the way, and
Yeah.
they make sure that it works. Like in the movie, and it fires on all cylinders.
Yeah, and what you just said is another reason why this deserves the phrase instant classic in my
Yeah,
opinion, because it has, when you watch it, you have that feeling similar to like when I watched like when you watch Godfather, or Wally was my other recent
yeah,
example of a classic movie. You watch it and you're like, I want to do that, or
yeah,
I can do that. I
yeah.
could I and it like it fills you with like something
Well,
amazing that just like,
inspiration. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and it's that's like the kind of magic of film that is
yeah.
very difficult to achieve and is
Yeah.
almost near impossible. But like when you see shit like this happen every once in a while, it's like it like
Right,
recalibrates you to be like, it all makes sense why people
right.
do this shit. It's like it's because to
Yeah,
watch Ratatouille work, it's to figure out
yeah,
how to do that. It's
right.
like that's movies.
And so I guess as we're thrust into like the sci-fi action movie part of the film,
Yeah.
the middle portion is her kind of learning how to verse jump and learning how to verse jump and trying to figure out what's going on. And she meets Joe Bukaki, who is Joy, who's basically experiencing everything everywhere all at once. She's basically a character who is like a Looney Tunes character. She's able to do anything, um,
Mhm.
and she works in all these universes. Um, and one of I think when this movie kind of blows your mind. I think when everybody sees it, I feel like this the moment that when she's introduced. When she's first introduced, she's like, "What the hell is going on?" Like she's doing all these wacky things, very funny. But when she is like, uh, "Let me show you what I see," and she describes the everything label, and she describes nihilism, you know, what she she describes the feelings that she has that nothing matters, and therefore, fuck it, why would I live? Fuck it, I'm gonna put everything on this bagel and just suck everything.
Yeah.
Meaning, you can take that many ways. Metaphor for depression, looking into the emptiness and abyss, and there's no meaning to live.
Yeah.
And when she describes that, I think the whole audience just goes, "Oh," the movie changes because up until that point, it's this very fun. It's a sci-fi action movie up until that point. Pretty not basic in any stretch of the imagination, but like we've seen something like this before.
Yeah.
But that brings it to this whole other level where it's bringing real, I mean, real emotional territory that we're working with here. I mean, it
Yeah.
makes it a whole different movie, and it kind of recontextualizes like, oh, this is what we're doing, you know, and that's when Evelyn, you know, uh, realizes that Joy is going through these things. So the rest of the film is basically her trying to. It's about a mother reconnecting with her daughter, and
Yeah.
that's what this movie is. And
Yeah.
using the multiverse as this idea of depression and like if you're experiencing everything, nothing matters. And so, what does that mean? What do we do with this information? And
Yeah.
so, the that's what's so cool about how this film is split up into chapters. So the first chapter is everything, and so that's when we learn that she all the multiverses, she goes in all these she experiences everything, you know, and it ends in this culmination where she uh, is back in the tax universe, I guess I'll call it, the where she has to do her taxes, and she's having the Chinese New Year party at the laundromat everywhere, and so she is experiencing what Joy is feeling, and she had to get to that point in order to reconnect with her daughter, and so she had the experience at all the multiverses, and this whole second half of the movie is literally an exploration in, in nihilism and in this idea of the multiverse in this philosophical sense, but in this still absurd comedy. And that's something that I think is, something that is so fucking brilliant about this. Really, what is brilliant is that it is, you know, it is I've never really seen a movie that has tackled these subjects, like this, and like
Yeah.
done in a way that um is truly beautiful. What this movie does, and I think a lot of people maybe are afraid to maybe do in movies, is this movie gives you a hug, a warm hug. It's not a lot of movies that do that. They try to do that, but this movie it feels by the end of it, it feels like the movie just gave you a giant hug and said
Yeah.
everything's gonna be okay. And that's what's hitting a lot of people. That's the feelings that are making people cry at the end of this movie is that, because we all go through, things like this, like we all have. I think if you're human, you have these thoughts of nihilism and maybe relationships that you have with your family and working through these relationships with your family and coming to a conclusion, and basically this movie comes down to the idea of okay, well, if nothing matters, we might as well be kind to one another and just hold on to the people that we love, which is, you know, it is just absolutely beautiful, And so, like, I think that to me, just the emotional core of it just is striking so many people because it's universal and it's not a lot of movies try to do this. And when you do it, it comes off as corny. And this movie doesn't come off as corny. It comes off as literally like the filmmakers working through these hard emotions that they're really exploring it and coming out on the other end feeling better about themselves and feeling better about their lives, which is like there's nothing more that I want, from a movie. This movie makes you want to be a better person when it ends. It makes you want to be seriously. It makes you feel like there's someone out there for you. It feels like that you are loved, which is like incredible. I can't
Yeah.
really think about the last movie that I walked out feeling like my life was different. I had I had a profound experience.
Yeah, dude. I mean, so I think we could spend all day talking about the different levels of how the Daniels
Yeah,
are genius with this movie, but that's something that is really phenomenal to me in the way they tell this story is this blending, which they did this in Swiss Army Man 2, which they
totally,
start with a
absolutely.
laugh and end with a cry. But
Yeah,
this, they
yeah, yeah,
perfected it with this
yeah.
transition of humor
Right.
blending into genuine emotional
Yeah,
fucking like crying
territory.
like a
Yeah, right,
baby type
right,
of
yeah,
breakdown.
right, right.
And the way that is that they work this is well, it's based on the transformation of Evelyn's character, which is
Yes,
largely
yeah,
what story is. It's transformation either through the character or through the world around them,
yeah,
where they start somewhere and they end. And it's that
right,
transformation of Evelyn being the mom that Joy needs at that moment, at the end.
right.
That's what this story is about. And
Yeah,
it's really smart to make the story about, because what it seems like this movie is going to be about is a saving the world movie, which fucking
yeah,
sucks because we've seen
yeah,
that movie a
right,
million
yeah,
times and everyone's
right,
so fucking bored of it. But it's
yeah,
dope that they start this movie saying, this is what this movie is going to be. And everyone's like,
yeah,
okay, I know what's up.
yeah,
And they're
right,
like, just kidding, because this isn't
yeah.
about saving the world.
That's kind of what I
This
was
is about
talking about,
saving
that
Joy.
hallway scene where it's revealed like what her goal is. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, so this is a different type of movie than you thought you were gonna get.
And I loved the bravery to do that, to actually tell a
Yeah.
real story, to
Oh
go
yeah.
to not worry about like saying fuck the world,
Yeah.
it's about Joy and her mom,
Yeah.
and they need to figure this shit
And
out, or
Layden and Evelyn,
yeah,
repair
it's
their
about this,
relationship.
about that
Yeah.
family, this whole
And how
family.
Yeah, the whole family, and Elan James Hogg's character. I don't know if the grandpa has a character name. I can't remember what.
Gong Gong is
Yeah, yeah,
who
Gong
he's
Gong,
referred
yeah,
to the most. Yeah.
right. But like their relationship as well. It's this whole family dynamic.
Yeah, and I feel like, and it's all based on that tension between the kid, the Joy, and Evelyn. It's that tension right
Right,
there in that
right,
relationship that is literally breaking the family apart. And you
right,
don't quite realize that at the beginning, because there's a lot of things that seem like they're wrong, and
right,
you have to go through this whole existential experience, which this is
right.
what an existential
Exactly.
experience
Right.
feels like. You go
Yeah.
everywhere all at once, all the time, and
Exactly.
then at the
Right.
end of your existential experience, it's like it's so obvious. I
Yeah.
just have
Right.
to take out the
And
trash,
that's
and then you
kind of
do it, and it's
and
fine.
that's kind of how family um situations often happen. When
Yeah.
you have a problem with your family, it often feels like the entire world. You know, but
So true.
but
Yeah,
it
so true.
ultimately is the small thing. Like, I just want you to be nicer to me, or I just want you to, you know, pick me up from school every once in a while. Like, just, but it feels the world. And that's what is so genius about the multiverse aspect of this movie. Is they took that idea and literally made a sci-fi action movie about that. Using the multiverse as a metaphor for that feeling. That chaos of the world. That surrounds you. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, and it's
and
funny because the way this movie is absurd in a lot of the sense, but in the way, what
what are you
again,
talking about?
the the way what the Daniels know how to do is they take these absurd circumstances and then relate it to the realistic way that humans would emotionally respond to it, which is why Swiss Army Man works too,
Yes,
because at the
yes,
end of the day,
absolutely.
this is
That movie's
more
about suicide.
right. And
Swiss Army Man is about a guy wanting to kill himself and finding a dead body and learning how to live life, like the true meaning of life again, through a dead body.
yeah, which is absurd, but it relates to real human emotions. And so
Yes,
in a lot of ways,
yes,
even though Endgame is much more of a realistic, grounded type of movie, I
yeah.
think that Everywhere is much more realistic to how humans actually
Oh
are
yeah.
than something
Oh
like
yeah,
Marvel
absolutely.
movies.
I mean, like, that's why that's the A24 difference.
Right.
That's the like artistic movie, like story, like true artists who are out here trying to make emotional, true stories that feel true. And
Yeah.
like that's why
Yeah.
this movie's so fucking amazing, is that like it has that accessible action sci-fi thing that people want out of movies, when it actually will fucking tug your heartstrings and whip it around and wrap around them
Yeah.
like a lasso, and then like it's not a lot of blockbusters. Not that this is a blockbuster, but what feels about this is it has that facade of a blockbuster. That's what I love so much about it. Is
Yeah.
that
And
they went into the movie knowing that that's what they wanted to make.
I just remembered a wonderful quote from Andrew Stanton, who's the guy who directed
Oh yeah,
Wally. I
oh
watched Wally
yeah. And
recently and got
Finding
super
Nemo,
obsessed with it, but he's like a fantastic director. But he
yeah,
has this great quote where he talked about where with stories or with films, with what audience want is that they want to work, but they don't want to know that they're working, which is
yeah,
so genius. And it's what this movie does. You're doing a lot of work while you're watching this movie, but
hmm
they make it so easy for you to do that work that you
yeah.
don't even notice you're
That's a
doing it.
lot of the humor. It's a lot of like just the action. It's entertaining. That's the entertainment factor. That's why I think if you watch Solaris by Andre Tarkovsky, you will get a lot of out of it. But the thing is, you gotta work. It's not an I wouldn't call it a entertaining. It's
Yeah.
entertaining, but it's not like it's not gonna work on this like you have to watch it in a completely different way, and you have to watch
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
normal audience members will not get the most out of Solaris that it has,
It's
obviously, but
yeah, it's not like the
or
immediate
2001 even,
yeah, yeah, it's a difference between
which
of like
oh my god, the 2001 reference to this movie was the funniest thing I think I've ever seen in my life.
oh yeah, the diverging of the normal hand people to the hot dog people. That was oh my gosh. There was so many moments in this movie that like my jaw like dropped. So that was a
Yeah,
moment where I was like, I can't believe that just happened. That
yeah,
was
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
And then one of my favorite scenes that I just can't believe is in this movie is the butt plug fight scene.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The
It's
butt plug
incredible.
fight
Yeah,
scene is fucking iconic,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I could not believe my eyes.
No,
I
yeah, it's
got
amazing.
self-conscious because I was laughing so loud. It's like
Yeah,
I feel like I just am louder
yeah,
than the actual movie
it's
because I'm
incredible.
laughing so fucking much.
That's incredible. Yeah, that I'll never forget the first time I saw it when the award is real, like shown in that scene, and the whole audience realizes what's about to happen.
Yeah,
Everybody just starts laughing.
yeah.
It's just that moment that's the thing about movies that are just so great. It's just that rack focus to the thing. They both look at it, they're like, and he starts pulling his pants out, and everybody's like, "Oh
Oh
my
my
god,
god.
dude!"
And it's so and you know that they do so much great setup in this movie. Again, like with the bagel,
Yeah,
but with that award, you know. They
right.
it's Deidre's
Yeah,
award that she
well,
shows at the beginning. And
yeah,
it's funny in that moment because it looks like a butt plug. And you're like,
right.
that's hilarious. Only an IRS person would be so out of
It's
touch
also funny
that they
because
would
like, look at my awards for like IRS agent of the month or
yeah,
whatever.
and it's like you only get this when you see a lot of shit. It's like
Yeah,
that's so funny.
yeah.
That's so funny. But it
Amy
also
Curtis killed that scene when she's like, I see a
I know.
story.
I see a story and it does not look good.
I do that. She kills that scene.
But it's also great setup for like
Yeah, yeah,
this moment. So it's like you can get ease
yeah, exactly.
into
Right.
the butt plug fight scene
Yeah.
where that it works, you know, immediately that
Well,
joke hits.
that's the thing that's so crazy about this is like the setup and like the absurdity. It leads up into the rock moment, which is one of the
Yeah.
craziest scenes in like any like film ever made. Because if you really break down, like if you take that scene out of context, right? You watch it,
Yeah.
you're like, what in the fuck is this? Like you literally would be like, what is this?
yeah.
Like this is
Yeah.
funny, kind of, but in the context of the movie, it makes you cry. So like them talking about the existential life of a human as two rocks and it's subtitles is like incredible because
yeah.
the it is all through a moment in a scene like that does not work unless you have the audience's full attention and
Yeah.
full
Yeah.
grasp,
That's such a good point. And that actually gets back to like one of this fundamental and very complicated aspect about film, which is like the Kuleshov effect and talking about like the guy who made Battleship Potemkin, like the stuff he was studying
Oh
Eisenstein,
yeah,
which is
Eisenstein.
the relationship of montage and
A
how
lot of interesting montage shit in this movie.
when you put like the rock scene in
Yeah,
context with other stuff, it creates a new meaning to it and it gives it a kind of emotional
exactly. Right,
significance to it that it wouldn't have on its own.
right.
Like, for example, when the rock turns around and you see the googly eyes, there's
Hmm.
so much meaning in that, but
Right,
the image itself is not necessarily imbued with that meaning.
right.
It's the context of it within the visual juxtaposition
Exactly.
of
Right.
the film, which
Yeah.
is very fundamental filmmaking, which we forget in modern movies because so much about modern movies is just about how do we shoot this to look like real,
Uh-huh.
as
Yeah.
opposed to saying, let's make a cut feel crazy. Let's do a
Right.
crazy cut that
Right.
that makes you feel something. It's just like,
Hmm.
well, first we cut to the wide shot, then we cut to close up. It's like,
Yeah.
it's so frustrating and it's so refreshing
Like
to see shit like this.
just like also the whole like climax of this movie really is a montage. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's working in this really, honestly, wholly original way that I've never really seen a movie like it, like work in this way. Like what I was saying kind of earlier, like with the different like styling each universe with like different genres and things like that. But when it's like switching, I mean, it's often like when the moment that I keep thinking of that is like when um Evelyn is having her, moment with Wayland and kind of like working through with him, is literally going from like it's one conversation that they're having, but through about four different characters.
Yeah, right.
And the way that it's going, montage is absolute. The fact that it works is mind blowing. Like no one would ever. I mean, I don't even think we'll even see a movie that works like that. I mean, there is just so much that had to happen for something like that to work. I mean, it's switching from location to location, three different versions of a character, and they're having the same conversation. It's
Yeah.
fucking crazy. Like
Yeah.
it's mind blowing. Um, and
Yeah.
that's how a lot of this movie works. And like the whole beginning section of the movie kind of teaches you how to watch the movie. They're doing these things like very subtly and entertainingly to get you to that point where you can like accept, you know, each cut is a different universe and a different version of the character.
Yeah. And I feel like that's sort of the distinction of this movie, sort of being so different than a lot of the more manufactured type of stuff. A story that's
Yeah.
manufactured like from this outside in type of way. This
Hmm.
is very like an inside out sort of where
Yeah,
you
yeah,
really
yeah,
feel like they found this film through making it. It
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
something that they were like, we're going to do that there. They're like, oh, they discovered
That's
that
why
while
that's
they were
why
making
I
it.
need to read the script. I need to know how that was written, like how
Yeah.
the climactic scene of this movie is written.
Yeah.
I need to see that. Because
Yeah.
was it just one conversation, or was it, you know what I mean? Like was it just one conversation about their marriage, for example, that culminates to like the moment that maybe cried the hardest when Wayland says, I think I wrote it down. I think I wrote the quote down. Let's see. Um, oh yeah, you think because I'm kind that it means I'm naive, and maybe I
Oh
am.
yeah.
It's strange and necessary. This is how I fight. So, which is just an absolutely beautiful line. I think like really nails down what this movie is about. You know, um, in the chaos of our world and the chaos of you know everything that we go through. Uh, I try to be kind, but the reason I do it is because it's strategic and it needs to happen because that's the only way to live life,
Yeah.
through chaos. Um, but uh, like just the way that was written, like is it just like was it Alpha Wayland or you know what I mean? Like was it CEO Wayland? Was it literally just like I don't know because it's like it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like in the
I
film,
think
it's
that
amazing.
they
I can't believe. would it like on the page, does it translate? That's what I need to see,
Yeah. Yeah,
how
it'd
they
be
convince them
interesting.
to do
I
it.
don't, I would love to know that full process of the intimacy, because sometimes it's like the finished script might be like, is that like the last script that they is that like the final script at the
Yeah,
end of the production, or was that the working script? Like, what
right.
did that script look like before that scene was shot and then
Yeah,
after? Because sometimes you might like edit the script, like,
yeah,
I don't know, because the script might have been totally different, they did something different, or maybe they like, I
right.
bet they did have the idea to blend that monologue between multiple different universes.
For
But I
sure.
don't think
I
they,
just would love to see how it was written,
I
you
know, me
know?
too. Yeah, me too. Because it's so fascinating. It's like,
Yeah.
how do
How do
you
you
keep
write
track
that?
of all
How do
that?
you
How do you write it?
translate that to give the actors and they understand it and they go, yeah, I want to be in the city. Like
Yeah,
that's like a real thing. Or
yeah,
get into A24 and go, yeah, we'll produce this.
yeah,
I get it. I know that this is gonna work. That's the thing about a script is like you have to write it in a way that allows the studio actors, to see it, to see the film on the page and give you the green light to like make it. So
yeah.
it had to work as a piece of writing,
I would love to have seen their pitch session, because they seem, I bet they're amazing at pitching
Oh yeah,
shit.
oh yeah,
They're probably phenomenal at it. And I
oh
would have
yeah.
loved to see how they pitched
I mean, if they
this,
got
because
Swiss Army Man, they got $1.5 million for the Swiss Army Man. Yeah, they're gods at pitching, dude.
yeah, they know how to pitch.
No
So
one in their right mind to go pitch Swiss Army Man. You have to be them. There's no okay. So he's a corpse in his bed and he farts, and sometimes his boner, makes a compass. Right? Get out of here.
Yeah,
Well,
man. Yeah. I want to
I want to love to know what their opening line was when they walked in. Okay, so it's an existential movie about a dead corpse. Like, how do you know how do you make that sound appealing?
I don't know. I would love to. I'm sure they do though, because
Of course,
they did it.
they got a name. It's out there in the world.
I want to talk about this fascinating phenomenon that I had, which you supported. You seem to have something similar happen, where
Uh-huh.
the first time I watched this movie, I cried, but I only cried like once, kind of like around the
Yeah.
ending sort of scene. And I just enjoyed the fuck out of it the first time. It changed my life as soon as I saw it. The second time, it almost destroyed me,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
watching that last scene, because I was crying throughout the
Yeah.
whole, like, after Wayman's speech, to be
Well,
kind,
no,
like I
no,
was crying for
no.
the whole rest of the movie.
And he
It
goes,
was
he said, CEO Wayland tells movie star Evelyn, uh, if I would be happy doing laundry and
yeah.
taxes.
I cried at that. I
Yeah,
cried at the I am your mother. That made me
right.
cry. The dude, I don't know. Like, there's just so many the moments when the whole family is trying to pull
Yeah.
her out of the
Yeah.
hole. The
Oh yeah, I
moment that
love that.
they
Yeah,
let
yeah,
go, it's like I cry about one thing. I'm actually
yeah.
I'm almost tearing up just thinking
Well,
about the scenes
it's
again.
beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous, man. Like just the arc too, the way that the Evelyn's character arc is shown visually, like her learning that she has to be kind. And in that IRS universe, her like creating, using kindness to fight. Like using the perfume and like putting the googly eyes on people.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
stuff. It's like so fun and but it's so emotional because it's like you know the arc of her character. It's like her realizing like I have to be kind to fight through this, and I have to get to like honor and show her that I love her, because I haven't shown that obviously,
yeah.
um, and yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, the whole along the verge of tears, I mean, like and like the thing is, it's just the execution of it. It's just absolutely beautiful. It's just the music is amazing. The song Lux score is really cool.
Oh yeah.
Really great. I love that last song. The title song. I keep listening to. I really love it. This is a life.
The music is like, I think, another factor of why
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah.
I love so much. I actually had an experience in college where they were like when I was really stressed out as a senior, like
Yeah.
I found their music and it really like
Yeah.
resonated with me and helped me through
Yeah. I
like
remember
that
that.
hard period of school.
Yeah.
I love like I there's just one of those albums that's just like one of those albums for me that is
Yeah.
like I go to it whenever I need
Yeah.
something, you know, and it's
Yeah.
like it's a really supportive album for just my life.
Yeah.
And this music, them being in this music in this phenomenal way is personally special to me,
Mm-hmm.
but also just goes to show how, I mean, they're just great musicians on
Yeah. They're
top of that.
incredible. Yeah. Yeah.
They're just so good
And
because they
also,
bring
any
something really
fucking
unique.
movie that has David Byrne in it
Yeah.
is, with the music at the end, is an A plus. I mean, I don't know what to say. It's David Byrne. You can never go wrong, you know? So, um, yeah, I love the music. Yeah, it really, really does highlight, the emotional beats. It's what music in film is supposed to do. Highlight these emotional beats and highlight the guide you emotionally. And that's what the music does. In this movie. Um,
And it also probably goes,
Perfectly.
it probably helps the Daniels a lot that they have this experience with music videos to know how to really work with music too. I feel like that
Oh
they,
yeah.
and a lot of that
And
is
also, Swiss
more
Army Man used music in a
right. It's like a,
really cool way.
it's almost a musical, and in
Yeah,
some scenes they
yeah,
are musical scenes.
yeah.
So like, but you know, that's another thing with like just kind of talking about their background as like as music videos directors is that sometimes that doesn't that going switching that career, switching your from music videos to like story driven works
Uh-huh.
like can be not as successful because you don't quite know how to do the stories. You can get something
Right.
visually compelling, but you can't
Well,
get the
yeah.
story component.
I
But
will
they
say though, some of my favorite filmmakers started in music videos. I will say
right.
that.
It's not that you can't translate to that. It's just
No.
the hardship of translating that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And they really did the work to bring all the great things that they do in their music videos, bring that to a
Yeah.
real film story, you
Yeah.
know, and
Right.
they just nailed that. And it brings, I feel like that their music video background brings a real freshness in the way that like the movie House does or
Sure, yeah.
Spike Lee's films
Yeah.
do. It's just like a new perspective about like how to approach stories and how to
Yeah.
communicate stories visually is based
Yeah.
on, I think, hugely influenced by that background in music
Yeah. I
videos.
think so
It's
too.
so
I think
important.
they're also speaking like their connection to like music videos, one of my favorite directors, probably well, they're very inspired by Spike Jones, and it's
Mm-hmm.
clear, but they're even more inspired by Michel Gondry, who directed Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and
Mm-hmm.
Silence and Sleep and Be Kind Rewind. But then his music videos are super iconic, incredible. And I know that they talk about how much they love Michel Gondry's work, and they are Eternal Sunshine maybe the only movie that I can even kind of compare to this movie. Now that I think about it, that Eternal Sunshine has that I wouldn't say multiverse, but it has that multiverse verse jumping aspect to it that but done in like this grounded way, like this practical effect way. It's just incredibly creative filmmaking. Um, Michel Gondry is the only filmmaker that I think I would compare the Daniels to. Just
Mm-hmm.
the way that he uses practical effects and the way that just their visual style is very similar. But other than that, yeah, I mean, and Hero Murai, who's an incredible TV director, who directed like Barry and Atlanta, and he started in music videos. There's a lot of David Fincher. I don't know if you guys have heard of that guy.
Yeah.
Started in music videos. Um, I think what's cool about music videos is that um, you can almost get your language down, like your visual language, because that's all that medium is. Like you can tell a story, but it's all through visuals, and you have this music, and so you really can really flex your muscles and just like really tell stories visuals. That's what the Daniels did. All their music videos have stories to them. I mean, like they all are like stories, and so absurd, emotional. But they have the beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah.
And so like I think they just you know learned a lot with that. You could some people create music videos. I think um I don't know. My favorite music videos are always the ones that um tell a story or do something cool visually that aren't just um studio produced that are just like generic.
Yeah, yeah. And I
So
think it seems like that music videos are a really good training ground to learn the craft of filmmaking because you can
oh
make
yeah,
so
oh
many of them, and just the volume
yeah,
of just like learning that work is, again, it's one of the reasons why they were able to make something so complicated through such simple means,
well
such
also
simple tricks and visual effects.
it's just experimentation too. Music videos are
Yeah.
just allowed to
Yeah.
experiment because you
Yeah.
hear a song, you're like, fuck it, let's just have a guy hump a bunch of things. I mean, this the song makes me want to hump a bunch of things. Let's just
Let's do that.
what if the guy has the most powerful hump in the world and breaks things and they're like perfect and they make a thing about it and it's the turned out for what music video.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. So um yeah, I love the Daniels. I think that they um are geniuses. I think this movie just completely cement. I've already loved them, like I said, and I was really excited for this. But this blew me out of the this blew everything expectation I had out of the water of
I
like
know.
what I thought they were even capable of doing. And telling a really just super compelling story and doing it in this absurd comedy context. They're still the Daniels. They still have that absurd nature and comedy nature to them and this super playful, sandbox that they play in, but they could tell a fucking story. And
Yeah, man. Yeah,
that's like
dude.
that's the best types of filmmakers that are able to
Yeah.
get these original, crazy, absurd ideas made, but convince a studio that, hey, we know what we're doing. This movie will work.
Just let us do
Trust
it.
us.
Let us do it. Let
Give
us
us
do it.
20 million. You
Yeah.
know, we can do it. And they do, and it will this movie will be remembered forever.
Yeah.
It's a masterpiece.
And I can't, it's so exciting because Swiss Army Man worked, but it didn't have this kind of response to it.
No,
So
no,
the
no.
opportunity that they're going to get because of this is
Right,
very exciting. It's
right.
so exciting to see that they have like so much. I hope they have so much more flexibility now. Like they can do
Yeah.
like something. If I hope what I,
I
how everyone
mean,
has like a dream project they have in their back
A24,
pocket.
I think has them locked. I think they have put handcuffs on them and said, "We will make everything that you guys want."
Yeah, right. I hope that they have like a dream project in their back pocket
I
that now
think
they
that
can be like, let's do it.
right. Well, I think that this is from what I've read. I think this is they
Their
work
dream
on this movie
project.
for 6 years.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it
this
feels like one of
movie
those
was one of
things.
the hardest things. I couldn't even imagine writing a movie like this.
Yeah.
So impossible. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
man. This feels like one of those things that like I'm excited in 10 years when we're still doing this podcast to review this again as on
10
like
years.
as a classic review, like do a classic review on this 10 years down
Episode
the line.
4,500. Yeah,
But
man.
it feels like this. It's like it's going to be here. I'm going to be here 10 years later, I hope, and this movie's going to be here and I'm still
Yeah.
going to be watching it.
Trying to think about what else. Um, I think we kind of talked about everything. I think, other than like, do you have anything wrong with it? Like, did you have the second time you watched it? Is there something about it that you didn't like?
I have one and only one
Okay,
critique of this movie, and it's so small and only momentary that it doesn't bother me and it won't bother me.
okay,
And it's okay, I think it could almost be boiled down to a pet peeve of mine. The scene, the speech that Wayman gives, like
yeah.
I feel like it's all my fault. It's a great speech, but I think it's
Oh,
so silly in movies when there's like the emotional monologue where like all of the threat just stops and just listens to this
yeah, yeah,
guy
yeah,
for like 5 minutes. It's
yeah,
like
yeah,
I just don't think
yeah,
that ever works, and I
yeah,
think
yeah,
it's
yeah,
really silly.
yeah.
But the fact that they didn't let that be like, that's just like a moment, and then they intercut
Yeah,
it with like
it's
the
funny.
CEO Raymond and the other type of
Yeah,
stuff. But that shit is just like, there's no reason to do that in a
yeah,
movie. I just think it's so silly.
yeah,
But that's my only criticism I can think of it. And again, at the end of the day, I like that speech. I like the performance. I like
yeah,
where it goes from that. So
yeah,
it's like I think it's something that they could have come up with something in that moment. They could have
yeah,
done, like, just staged it a little differently,
yeah.
like all the same, but a little bit different. Just tweak it a little bit. But I don't really have that much of a problem with it because it works
I
in
mean,
the
that's like
context
that's
of the
a you
film.
just you have I don't like a shot.
That's
You
all
just
I
like I don't
got.
like
That's
one
yeah.
shot.
That's literally it's
Yeah,
all I
I mean,
have.
yeah. I really I've seen it 3 times. I'm really struggling to think of anything.
There's like some moments of like I wouldn't call them criticisms. There's like moments of pacing, like at the beginning, where like it's like they have to sort of like explain what's happening. That's like, okay,
I
this
think
is
I think I would agree with you, but I think I was gonna say that, but I think the problem is that why I don't want to say that is because the first time I watched it, I didn't have that. But I still
yes,
like,
exactly.
but the thing is, it's not the movie's fault. The movie is designed to be seen what the first time, so you kind of need these exposition scenes, I guess, like um explaining, well, because this movie is so absurd that you have to have like, and I think the way that they did it, I think was the best that they could have done it. Where it's there's always something happening. They're always on the run or something. There's not like a scene
Right.
where Evelyn is like, it's always funny. It's always great. It's always like really engaging stuff. But you're right that on repeat viewings, the I guess those scenes drag a little bit because you're like,
Yeah.
I want to get to this.
Yeah, but just like
I know how the movie works.
yeah, and
You
that's
know?
that's it. It's just like
Yeah.
it's so funny. It just drags a little bit, and it's only a
Right.
problem because I'm so excited to get what happens
Yeah.
next. But you're right.
Exactly. Right.
Even in those scenes that are sort of slow, quote unquote, the second or third time
Yeah.
you watch it, even in those scenes, they make me laugh or I'm intrigued by it.
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
scene where like that first time when Wayman's like, well, to tell you the truth, that she made something. It's like this bagel. It's just like, I know about the bagel. Let's go. But like that first time you watch it, you're like, what is it?
Yeah.
What's
Yeah. Yeah.
behind those curtains? So it's again it's sort of a nitpicky
I love
criticism.
that part when he's like, we're in the break room or something, and he's like, all in my universe, all the cows died. The cream cheese, and then he drinks the half and half.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
I love that there's so much like little humor like that too.
Oh, there's
Just
so
like,
many great little moments throughout the whole thing that just kill me. There's
yeah.
one that just the third time I watched it, I was like, because I just couldn't believe what I was seeing when Deidre, or is that
Yeah, I think that's her
Deidre,
name. Yeah.
was like in the IRS universe was like introduced. I was like, oh shit, she's you know evil, and she like sucks in her belly and then like roars like
Yeah.
Godzilla. I was like, dude, this movie is insane. Like the
I
fact that
love that moment.
they did that, I just could. I don't know, like the movie sold for that moment for some weird reason. I was like, I could not believe they just did that.
That's
It's
so
so crazy and hilarious. Oh my god, man.
it's funny because that I had the same experience with that exact moment where it just like stuck out to me as something like that's awesome
And
and so wild.
she puts a piece of paper on her head and like puts a staple through it, and then just yells like a dragon.
I love that moment is so great because it's her performance is awesome. It's like cool and creepy and
Yeah,
funny and scary all,
yeah,
and it doesn't really make sense, but it also works. It's
yeah.
so awesome.
I also like the thing too that this is how to do genre bending. I mean, this is every genre ever
Yeah.
in a movie. I mean,
Yeah.
literally. I mean, it's pretty remarkable in how many genres they put into the movie and were able to like not make it seem off-putting or whatever. Um, I'm trying to think of like some, because I did go on like a rabbit hole. 'Cause I was like, who doesn't like this movie? And like I was trying to go on some rabbit hole of like trying to find like some criticisms that I could maybe like bring up that some people have thought. I know I
Yeah,
brought up
I'm curious about that.
the genre bending thing where or the referencing thing, which I didn't really understand. I didn't really get. I get the crit. I see it, but I also like. I don't think it's. I don't think it's pandering. I don't think it's like
Right.
remember the Matrix. You know, like I don't think it's doing that. But I think there was another criticism that I saw that I think was so insane, and I want to know like, and I don't think it's this is a criticism that is like wrong. I just think it's always like really cynical, and I'm just not a cynical person at all.
Yeah.
But somebody said, a critic said that in the line of that same criticism that it is a very self-referential movie, that this is like an audition, like the Daniels were like auditioning for like bigger budget things that they are able to like and like I remember hearing that. I heard that on a podcast, and I literally said, "Oh fuck you!" I mean, like really? I mean, like that's such a cynical way of looking at it, where like they made this movie to audition for a fucking Marvel movie. Give me a fucking break. I mean, that's a fucking
Yeah.
dumb act. That's so cynical and silly. Um, and like
Why would they want that though? They
well, I mean, I
clearly
don't
don't
know. I
want.
mean, people. I mean, think about it. I mean, Ryan Coogler makes Marvel movies. There's a lot of indie filmmakers that make Marvel movies now that make great independent films. I mean,
Yeah.
and like a lot of those guys, like some people want to be in that system. You know, like some people
Right.
want to make big Hollywood movies, which is like incredible. Look, Robert Eggers just The Northman is $100 million movie. Like, I mean, that's a Hollywood movie. So like these independent filmmakers like they want to have like big budget. Some of them want to have like big budget movies and want to be in the studio system and make like
Yeah. Right.
a
Right.
Robert Eggers movie with $100 million budget or a Daniels movie with $100 million budget, and
Yeah.
like, but still, I think that like getting that from this movie is ridiculous.
Yeah.
The
It's
conclusion to that is insane. Like
that's
I
such
could
a.
like see like if okay, if this was just an action movie, say this was like John Wick,
Mhm.
okay, then I would listen to you. You know what I mean? Like if it was like a really great true homage to like Hong Kong action movies, which part of this is obviously, but say that this was a true Hong Kong homage movie, and someone said, "Oh, they're auditioning to make like a bigger budget action movie," I would be like, "Okay," like I can see that maybe that's like what they want to do in the future. But getting that conclusion from this movie that doesn't click, doesn't
It's
make
also
sense.
it's also it's such a weird thing that feels similar to the homage criticism, where it's like you can
Yeah,
identify it and be like, yeah, it kind of is that, but why are you saying that's a bad thing? Because it's like, yeah, they're making this movie to hopefully
well,
go on and make
it's
bigger
cynicism.
project.
It's
You know,
very
it's
cynical. Yeah,
and it's like you have this. It's like I don't even like the idea of that being bad. It's like along the ideas, it's like, oh, they're not making real shit because they're just doing this to sell out and make more money. It's like what they're actually
yeah,
trying to say, which is just like, well, that's just so weird to me that
right,
it's just like it seems like you have to do so much work to get to
yeah,
that mindset instead of just like, why don't you just watch the movie and just
yeah,
see
right,
what the movie has to offer instead of kind of like
yeah.
warping your brain. And because like I think that you can, as if you think about things, you can make it make sense. Like you can
Mm-hmm.
saying that you can make that make sense if you really
Right.
want to, but you have to put a lot of work into that to make that
But
make
there's also
sense.
like no like I mean yeah, I don't also even if it is, I don't fucking care, dude. Like
It's a good
if this is
movie.
about yeah, right. If they went in this movie that we wanna make Doctor Strange 3 and we're gonna make this movie to audition to do that. More power to them. I don't give a fuck. They made a great movie. I don't care. Like
Yeah. And it's basic, I guess like these other criticisms could be it's just like, oh, well, they're just like a low budget, like wannabe Marvel thing, which
well
is like
that was
so
the other thing that he said. Yeah.
that's like
Yeah.
which is like so like out of touch, which is just like if that's your point of what it is, and it's like, well, then I'm going to make a judgment on your personality if you
Well,
really
okay,
believe that.
yeah, yeah. Well, so that's kind of the cynical aspect to it. Is what we're saying is like I think another interesting conversation about this is kind of related to the Marvel and like the multiverse craze
Hmm.
that we're in right now, where it is attributed to the success of this movie, I think. And Michelle Yeoh is in a Marvel movie, is in the same too. And so there is a um something going on where like I guess the cynic in me would say like, oh, this is just, people are loving this because it's so connected to, you know, multiverse movies and these movies that are popular now, which to me is one of the brilliant things about it because it's taken, um, their idea for the film was to take a big, that looked like a big budget action movie that would come out in 2022, but inject a real compelling story into it, and use the multiverse actually as a metaphor, not just to bring Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield in a movie again,
Right.
to actually look at the multiverse like physicists do, and theologists do, and analyze it like, what does this mean for humanity? Um, so to me, that's actually a brilliant aspect to it. But I mean, I guess like again, playing devil's advocate, I don't know how
Right.
well this movie's going to age. I mean, I think it's going to age beautifully, but I don't know. I still think it will be great. Obviously, it's a great movie, but I don't know how it will age.
I think, yeah, yeah. So that's this is a really good. I think this is a really good and interesting point, and it's going to take time to see. You're right. It's going to just depend on time to see how it plays out in the end.
Because
I think,
we're 24 years old. We're in the Marvel movies. We like the Marvel movies. We're the gentleman. We're the route for this movie. You know the we're in it. This movie was made for us. It's also made for, we've been talking about kind of the theory that I have, not theory, but just connection I have about like the multiverse aspect of like the internet, how a lot of like our our generation like have a lot of these feelings of that nihilism and nothing matters because we have the whole universe on our fucking phone. We can experience everything everywhere all at once on our fucking phone.
yeah,
Like we could find out about any person, any story in the world, and that's kind of creating this, you know, kind of poor mindset in a lot of kids today because they their world is so much bigger. It's not, you know, limited to their own experience now. It's limited to everything, Um,
yeah.
so I don't know. I don't know how this is going to age, but
I think that the homage criticism and this other just being like a Marvel movie criticism is really interesting and valid in a valid argument. But I think what the point that both of those people are missing is that none of that shit matters at all about why
yeah,
this movie works so well. What works, in my opinion, and I think most people will agree with me, I think you'll agree with me, why this movie works is the transformative story behind it, which
yeah,
is the
right,
backbone of all great things. The reason why The Godfather is still translatable to people of today is
right.
because of that transformative story that is
Yeah,
in it and that transformative world that pulls you in and takes you on this journey. Why Casablanca still does this. All these movies, you go back in history, it's that transform, because that is something that is going to be true for humans
right.
forever, for our existence, because humans transform, we grow up. You might
Mm-hmm.
stop transforming at a certain point, but no matter what age you are, you have transformed a little bit at
Yeah,
least, and that's always going to be relatable. So like,
right.
fuck the Marvel shit, fuck the
Yeah,
homage thing. None of that matters. It's not what is connecting with people. It's
yeah,
cool, it's awesome, it's what makes this movie so unique, but it's the transformation is what makes it work. So like
yeah.
this
Well,
criticism,
yeah.
it's like,
It's the story. It's the character arc. It's the actual core of it.
so
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, it's going to be time again. It's going to be time again. But to a certain degree, kind of nitpicking, it can't, I feel it feels like nitpicking to me to kind of
Mm-hmm.
go on the lines of like saying it's too much like Marvel or all these things. It's just like
Yeah.
you're just comparing that to the superficial things that are happening today and
Right.
just sort of like comparing
Right.
like not very relevant factors to me about
Uh-huh.
what is actually connecting and
Yeah.
what's actually working to a certain degree.
Right.
Not to say again, I think that conversation is still very important to have, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of good discussion that can come out of this relating to like this or what you were talking about, like the internet. Like that's
Yeah.
fascinating, and
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
this is almost like a movie that could only have manifested from our experience with the internet. I think
I
that's
think
really
only,
cool.
yeah. I don't think yeah, I think just because like I mean what's interesting is like, I got a lot of people were even thinking about the multiverse, before, in the 80s. Like they weren't thinking about the multiverse like we are today. And I
Right.
think that's because of like just the overload of information that we have, and obviously advances in science and all these things. But um, I don't know. I remember reading those two criticisms that I thought was interesting, and I think um,
The other criticism that I think is I understand, I don't relate to this at all, but I very much understand is just it being too overwhelming. Like you just don't have
yeah,
enough
oh
experience with
yeah. I
like
mean those.
watching
I mean
stuff
I
and you
think
just
those
can't get
are.
it.
I yeah. I think like I think I don't know, man. I kind of I don't know that one just bugs me. So if you do think this is overwhelming, I would just say watch more things. Like I don't. Yeah, it's overwhelming a lot. And you could maybe just not get it. But like I'm almost certain that if you watch it again, and it might not be your sense of humor, that's like this is not your thing. That's just like it's not your
Yeah.
thing. Yeah,
I
but
think I think I think when you have that experience with something where it's so overwhelming you don't understand, it can be frustrating and unpleasant. So I understand that sort of
right.
feeling of not liking it initially. However, I don't think that's one, the fault of the movie, or two, really the
Oh,
fault
it's
of
not the
yours
fault of
either.
movie
It's
overall.
not describing a fault anywhere.
Yeah,
It's just a something that happens when you're inexperienced with something
yeah,
that's
right.
so outside of your
Well,
comfort
it's
zone.
also like this movie is, you know, I have the same sense of humor as the Daniels. If I had a
Mhm.
$20 million movie, I probably would have someone shove something up their ass. Like, I probably would. You know, so I have the same absurd sense of humor. But an older person or someone who doesn't have that sense of humor, like, just like this is not for them.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And that always happens no matter what, no
oh
matter
yeah,
how
sure,
good movie is, there's always people who are just not quite that into it, which is
yeah,
a fascinating
yeah, of
thing
course,
too in
yeah,
itself.
yeah,
It's like how
yeah,
how
right.
like I'm sure there's people who
And
aren't
there's
into
also
The
going to be,
Godfather.
there's going to be Redditors, it's coming, but an onslaught of haters of this movie. It's going to happen,
Yeah.
because this movie is so popular and it's like the top rated thing on Letterboxd right
Yeah, it
now.
always happens. People
It's going
always
to
come
happen.
in
Like,
storms.
the hate will happen. And we'll just see if, like, I don't know, if some Gallon things come out of that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
highly doubt it.
I think it's really interesting and significant though with how this initial response of this movie, not only that people said, "Oh, I really liked it," it's people saying this is the best movie I've ever seen. I've
There's a lot of
never
people who
seen
said
that
that. Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
this volume. I've never seen so many people say this is the best movie I've ever
Yeah,
seen.
and like, there's an argument to be had of like, why is that happening? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, right.
Because that's unheard of, right? And I think I tried to kind of describe, I think at the beginning, that I never said like, oh, this is one of the best movies I've ever seen, because like I think that's there's a lot of movies I haven't seen, and like I mean, yeah, it's one of my favorite movies I've seen in a long time. Like new movie, like absolutely. But I think for people who I have like what 2,000 movies long on my letterbox. Not a lot of people have that. I'm seeing more movies than the average person, but the average person who sees this movie calls it like the best movie they've ever seen. What is going on? Like, what is that? What is the special? Because this movie is really really great, but I think that it is just a lightning in a bottle situation. That I was trying to kind of describe is like this movie's doing a lot of things that movies are doing today, like the multiverse and the sci-fi stuff, but it actually is a thing called a movie, and so it's written, it's really well, and it's a story that can relate to our generation
Yeah.
for many different factors.
I think that this movie, part of the reason why we're getting this said so much is that it's a type of movie that I think would have that kind of resonance. Like for me, how I would say is that as soon as I saw that movie, I had that feeling of like that's one of the best movies I've
Yeah,
ever
yeah, yeah.
seen. That was
Right.
really, really good. And that's our friend who we were with who watched it with us.
Yeah,
That's what he said.
yeah,
The first thing he said, that was one of the best
yeah,
movies I've ever
yeah,
seen.
yeah.
That's just like
Right.
and I think the thing
Yeah,
about
dude, my
this is that
roommate said that too. Dude, every
it's
person that I've talked to said that.
I think that this is, in a way, the lightning in the bottle experience, I guess, kind of what I think I'd find interesting about it is that it's a different kind of lightning in the bottle than Ghostbusters or Shrek, which is like this absurd idea that just worked and was like, that probably won't ever work again. This
Yeah.
is like fundamental storytelling why this works so well.
Oh,
But the
oh,
lightning in the
oh,
bottle
oh, oh,
factor
yeah,
that I
yeah,
think
yeah,
you're
yeah.
talking about is it's in a
I'm
situation where people are seeing it. How
right,
often does something this creative get
right.
seen in this volume?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
new. That's lightning in the bottle.
But also like I'm more talking like culturally. Like this movie will be great
Yeah.
no matter what when it came out. Like it's a great movie. But I think culturally
Yeah.
it just came out at the perfect time.
Yeah.
And also
Yeah. I think
like
you're
I
right
think
about that.
also like movie theaters are just coming back. Like we had the Batman, and I think people are so excited to be in movie theaters now. You know, that this is just. I mean, like we said, like this is a amazing theater experience, and seeing this in a movie theater, filled with a bunch of people. I mean, that will elevate your experience. It really will. It will make you think like this is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. And also,
I'm crying with 100 people in the theater right now.
and this is making me think like from the cultural perspective, this is also maybe one of the best movies that has come out after the COVID crisis. I can't,
Exactly. Right.
what compares to this that came out after COVID? I'm racking there's a lot of great
Like
movies that have come out
that's what
like this
related
kind
to
of
the
phenomenal.
pandemic,
Oh,
or
I mean, like after lockdown ended, like after movie
oh,
theaters started coming back, we've had some great releases, but have we had
the
anything?
Batman, I guess.
That's the only
Like
thing I can think of that's
yeah,
kind of close, and it's not really
like a
close in
theater
this.
movie. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
it's like the Batman had a great response, and it's really good, but it's not
Dude,
like
people love the
this.
Batman.
Yeah, they was still
Well, I
showing when
mean,
I went and
I
saw this,
think
but
everything everywhere at once. I mean, Batman. More people have seen the Batman still, but um, I think, but yeah, this movie is like hitting on like a level where um
a paradigm shift kind of level.
yeah, 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 yeah. And I haven't really felt that since like even like I would probably say this is like my favorite thing since I've seen the Lighthouse, but I wouldn't call the Lighthouse like a paradigm shifting movie. It was in
Not for
my
the
world.
for us, for
Yeah,
you
it
and
was
me,
in
but
my
not
world, but not like in the grand scheme of things. The movie's
right.
too weird. Um
And that's
but
that's really interesting that that's just a significant thing culturally about this movie
yeah,
is that it's of that same sort of tier to you and I personally of like The Lighthouse, which was like when I saw that
yeah,
movie, it was
yeah,
like this
yeah,
is one of the best films
yeah,
I've ever seen. I didn't know a film
yeah.
could be made like this.
Right,
And
right,
that
right.
this film is like that for me.
Yeah.
And everyone else is saying that too. Whereas when I show them The Lighthouse, after they see it, they're like, I'm changed, but I'm not happy about it.
Well, I mean, we'll see. I mean, the thing is, we're not gonna know until like the future. I mean, like this does have like a similar feeling of like we'll see, like of like something like the Matrix or like the Dark Knight, like these really earth shattering,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
know.
if people see it. This movie, I'm pretty sure made more money than Ambulance, the
That's
Michael Bay
crazy.
movie.
That's awesome. That's
It's
crazy.
awesome. Sorry to Michael Bay, but I mean, that's unbelievable that this movie made more money than a Michael Bay movie.
Yeah,
That's
and that
super
was
impressive.
one of the factors in our classics
I
podcast.
think it
You
made
should,
about the same amount of money. I don't think it made
yeah,
more, but
I think
still,
one of the factors of a classics that I think is significant is when it changes how movies are made, which I think this is
yeah,
what this movie is really going to do. In the way that the Lighthouse is not a classic like that. The Lighthouse didn't really have that like changing the landscape
No,
how movies are made. It was
no,
just sort of like a more underground, subconscious,
yeah, right,
groundbreaking thing.
right,
But this will change how movies are made. I really think
yeah.
it will.
Well, I think it's just because it has that the lighthouse is not accessible. I wouldn't call that a accessible movie.
I agree.
Um, you have to be you have to be in the art cinema.
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
often seek out movies that you have to like give yourself up to. You know,
Right. The soul,
like
it's more on the Solaris spectrum of things.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Ingmar Bergman, like
Yeah.
genre weird
Oh yeah.
films.
Oh
So like,
yeah.
um, but this is like, everybody, it's that's what's so special about it. We kept talking about it where it's like it's accessible, but it is so wildly creative, that it's just like how no one, not a lot of people cannot get the infectious nature that this movie has, Um, but I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see. This is one of the most interesting A24 movies. I would say that this is what I love about A24 right now too is that even the film that they just put out, X, which I thought was great. I don't
Yeah, I
know if
want
I've
to
said
see
this
it.
on this podcast. I thought X was really great, and people are really liking that movie too. And what's cool about X, what's cool about this movie too, is that they're both um very accessible in the way that they're both strange films. But what I loved about X was because A24's horror movies are known for being elevated horror, like
Yeah.
Hereditary, which is like such a fucking dumb term because it's like, okay, what is it's just I hate that term because it's like, oh, this is like smarter horror movies. So
Yeah.
you're like, fuck you. Like it's like,
Too pretentious.
yeah, it's too we're not even pretentious. It's like what? So we're just gonna call The Conjuring not a good movie now? Like not a good horror movie? It's not elevated?
Yeah.
Like what are you talking about? The Conjuring's awesome. Like um just a different type of horror movie. But um X is not that. It's like a slasher movie. It's like a
Yeah.
slasher movie, but done it's directed by Kai West, who is a visionary, he's an amazing filmmaker. And so it has this actual vision to it, which a lot of like, slasher movies don't have. And or they're not directed by someone with that skill, like a real level of skill. And it's cool that A24 is like, hey, we like these kind of movies too. Like we like slasher movies, you know?
Yeah.
This movie isn't about like, you know, it's a slasher movie. Go have fun, It's
Yeah.
made by a really great filmmaker, You're gonna go on a ride. It's a really fun movie.
Yeah.
And
You know,
this movie too is like it's like this is a fun action sci-fi action movie that made by the Daniels, who are uh, amazing visionary filmmakers that are like making an accessible giant blockbuster movie. That's what this is. Like,
yeah, yeah.
it's
That's such an
cool.
interesting point, and it makes me think of Quentin Tarantino because that was like the
Yeah,
thing that he was
very similar
teaching
to
us.
that.
It's
Yeah.
like it's not like there's nothing this idea of high art and low art is just not real. It's not real. Like we saw this with
Mm-mm.
comic books. Like comics are not low art, they're just
It's
another
not
form
real.
of
And I think
storytelling.
I think there's a difference between people, like some critics and people who think that there is a difference between high art and lowbrow art. Like, fuck you. I mean, there's not. It's all, there's different types, but it's all art, you
Yeah,
know?
and
A
they're
Dario
used.
Argento movie is, Suspiria is art. Suspiria is art. The story is it's like it's so shallow. It's like, but it's art. It's artful. The way that it's made is incredible. It's amazing. Kill
Yeah.
Clowns is art.
Yeah.
It's art.
Yeah. Yeah, dude.
Did it make me cry? No, but it's art.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
And I think that this movie really is breaking the boundaries of what is like what that means,
Yeah,
now about or like not even just saying that like these types of movies can be high art. It's just saying like high art's stupid. It doesn't have to exist anymore. This
yeah.
distinction, this spectrum is like
Well,
it's not
it's like,
needed.
oh, okay, well, it's like the idea of like like a movie, like one of our professors was like, yeah, there's a difference between a movie and a film. It's like, yeah, okay, go fuck yourself. Like, no, no, stop. Go fuck yourself. Like, seriously, I'll never forget when he said that.
Yeah.
Um,
I
I
think it's
thought that
only
that was
value.
mind blowing and stupid.
These words are helpful for categorizations and understanding history and kind of like putting things together. But once we get in
Yeah,
this mindset of like they have like this meaning behind what films are or what they have to be, is like you're going into like
yeah.
cult
I mean, this
territory. You're
movie
like,
proves that you have no one knows what the fuck movies should be other than the
exactly.
filmmakers. No one knows
Exactly.
unless you're making them. No one knows. This
Yeah.
movie like is unlike anything ever. Like the
Yeah,
way
and
that
that's
this is made is not like any other movie. Like
when
yeah,
I watch everything at once, I get this feeling. I feel so many things, but one of the things I feel throughout is this wonderful weightlessness of freedom. You know, it's
yeah,
just I
yeah,
feel
yeah,
so free watching this, where it just
yeah.
really felt like they just did what they wanted
Well, they
and they made it
yeah,
good.
they have the spirit of like they keep this childlike wonder about them that they it's it's part of this beautifully absurd thing about this movie is like people hot dog fingers, raccoon, you know, puppet, like all these insane things, and it's on screen. They wanted to do it, so they did it. They didn't
Yeah,
question it. They believed in it so hard, and they made you believe in it. And
yeah,
that's like the beautiful thing about it.
and that's why we tell stories to each other.
Yeah,
That's why.
exactly. But yeah, and then I guess the last point I'll make is like it's cool that A24, who I've been a fan of them, I guess, for a while, and I remember all through college it was kind of like the pretentious thing, like an A24 movie is like kind of like it used to be like, oh, it's like A24, like I don't know if I want to be in the mood for that,
Yeah,
you
it's
know
art, hardcore art
art
films.
film, and that's like whatever. But now I just love that they're dabbling into like, because of course not, like what we just said, but it's like making an X, making this, making like who knows, like making. I think their next film called Marcel the Shell, which is like a little stop motion, like I don't even know if it's
Ooh,
stop motion. It's like a PG movie about like a little cute little seashell who's like traveling the world.
that's
That
amazing.
Yeah, that looks like a family movie. It looks like a kid family movie, but it looks crazy. It looks original. It looks weird. It looks like nothing ever made. You know, so it's like they understand like there's tons of different types of movies out there, and just because you know like I think they just are really trusting the filmmakers now. They're choosing filmmakers that are so skilled, and they believe in what they're doing, and that's what matters. Like that's
Yeah,
what matters. Like so, if Kyle West wanted to make a slasher movie that maybe didn't go the tropes of like some problematic tropes of the 70s, fuck yeah, man. You're an amazing filmmaker. Go make it. Like, it's not like A24 is like, oh, you gotta have a social message in this. You gotta
yeah.
go inject some. It's like, no. Like, I'm making a slasher movie, and I cast Kid Cudi in it. It's Boogie Nights meets Texas Chainsaw, and A24 goes, perfect.
Sounds
This
good.
is great. That's what's gonna keep them alive. Is that they make everything. And A24 is one of the only studios right now that are putting these original cool movies in theaters. So it's like I'm glad that they are around as much
Yeah,
as their fans annoy me sometimes.
yeah,
But
it's kind of it is cool to see them. It's didn't hadn't recognized that this was such a significant turning point, but you're so right about how big of a shift and how important of a shift this is for A24, because it was kind of like worrisome in the pandemic, because it was like, how
no,
are they
yeah, it
gonna
was.
like kick
Yeah,
out of this, because like the Green Knight was
yeah,
awesome, but like
right.
not the kind of response they needed,
No, no,
to
no,
be
no.
able to
Yeah,
like be successful. And this really does feel like bouncing back in kind of a new direction and just going in the right direction is what it feels like. It's
And
like
I think they're
this is where
also,
we should
because
go.
for the longest time, they're also just a distribution company. They
Hmm.
just distributed things. But now they're like, are getting bigger, and Euphoria, I think, probably has a lot to do with that because that show's fucking so successful.
Hmm.
That I think they're producing more things now,
Yeah.
which is great. Which
Yeah.
means that they are
Super
putting
great.
money into, like I think they produced this movie, so like they,
That's awesome.
provided the funding for it. So like,
That's awesome.
uh, which is so I understand that they didn't do a lot of that like 2017, 2018. They mostly distributed it. Um, but yeah, it's great. But
Man. Well,
what a
this movie,
conversation.
yeah, dude. Man, this movie makes me optimistic about the future.
Yes, it
We don't
does.
rate things. We don't rate things anymore because we think it's
And
kind of boring. And
yeah,
but this is a 10 out of 10.
this is a 10
I'll
out of 10
say
in
it.
my opinion. Yeah,
This is
this is a
definitely a 10 out of
masterpiece.
10 for me. It's a masterpiece.
Um, 2022, what the hell, man?
We got
This
some,
kind of broke the year. And then we
yeah,
got a Robert Evers movie coming out
this
tonight.
Friday. Tonight? Oh,
What the
yeah, it's
hell is going
tonight.
on?
I don't know,
What
man.
the fuck is happening?
It
Like,
it, it
movies
always
are back.
yes, yes.
I'm gonna go see a Robert Evers movie this weekend.
Oh, that's gonna be so
What the fuck,
exciting.
man?
I can't wait.
Incredible. And then I'm gonna go see a movie where Nicolas Cage plays himself in theaters. The movies are just thriving right now.
Yeah, it's
So
a welcome return because it was worrisome for a very long
and
time.
what's great is everybody's talking about originals movies getting made, theaters going to original movies. And this weekend alone, go see The Northman, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, Everything Everywhere All at Once. There's fucking kick-ass original fucking movies in theaters, which is just awesome. It's a great sign. Go see it, make money so we get more of them,
Do it, yeah, yeah. Support them, support
Because
them.
and then Netflix, did you see that drop like had a huge subscriber drop off and
Yeah, I did see that.
stock plummet? Woohoo! So I don't know. I don't know what's happening. The movie landscape is crazy. It's weird. It's we're seeing the effects of the pandemic happening right now, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's exciting.
Turning point, man. It's great to be a movie watcher.
Yes, it is.
Feels
It
great to be a
really is.
movie watcher.
All right, everybody. Thank you guys for listening to this long ass podcast. We will talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.